The fluorescent lights of Riverside High flickered overhead like dying stars. Tyler Brennan had learned to navigate these hallways the way a ghost navigates the living world present, but unseen occupying space without claiming it. He kept his eyes down, his shoulders hunched, his entire body language screaming, "Don't notice me," to anyone who might be looking. Most days it worked. Today wasn't most days. Cade Morrison stood by the lockers with his crew, all Letterman jackets and entitled smirks, scanning the hallway for entertainment. Tyler recognized the look. Predators wore it when they were bored and hungry. Tyler shifted his backpack, a Goodwill special with duct tape holding the straps together, and calculated the distance to the side exit. 30 feet, 29, 28. "Hey, Brennan." Tyler's stomach dropped. He kept walking, pretending he hadn't heard. "I'm talking to you, scholarship boy." The hallway went quiet. That particular kind of silence that meant everyone was watching, waiting to see if blood would be spilled before first period. Tyler stopped, turned, kept his face neutral. Yeah, Cade pushed off the lockers, his three shadows following. Jake, Connor, Brett. Interchangeable parts of the same bully machine that had made Tyler's life hell for 2 years. "You got lunch money?" Cade's smile didn't reach his eyes. "No." "That's funny, because I could swear I saw you with a $5 bill yesterday." Tyler's jaw tightened. That $5 had been for 3 days of meals. He'd already spent it. $2.47 at Old Joe's Diner. Fries and a water cup he'd fill with Sprite when Joe wasn't looking. The rest he'd save for tomorrow. "Spent it," Tyler said. "On what?" Those Cade gestured at Tyler's sneakers. The sole on the left one flapped when he walked, held together with super glue and hope. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Tyler felt his face burn. "We're done here," he said, turning away. Cade's hand clamped onto his shoulder, spinning him back. "We're done when I say we're done." Tyler knew what came next. The shove into the lockers, the contents of his backpack dumped on the floor. Maybe a swirly if Cade was feeling particularly creative. It was a script they'd performed dozens of times. But before Cade could make his move, a voice cut through the tension like a knife through silk. "Leave him alone." Everyone turned. Rachel Valentine stood 10 feet away, books clutched to her chest, her expression carved from ice. She'd transferred to Riverside 3 weeks ago, and in that time she'd spoken to exactly no one. She ate lunch alone, walked the halls alone, existed in her own orbit, untouchable and untouched. Until now. Cade blinked, recalibrating. "This doesn't concern you. I'm making it concern me. Listen, new girl." Rachel. Her gray eyes were chips of flint. "My name is Rachel, and I said leave him alone." The hallway held its breath. Tyler stood frozen, caught between humiliation and something else he couldn't quite name. No one had ever stood up for him before. No one. Cade looked Rachel up and down, his smile turning predatory. "You know what, fine. Today's your lucky day, Brennan." He stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. "But we're not done." They never were. As Cade and his crew swaggered away, Rachel met Tyler's eyes for the first time. Really met them. 3 seconds of connection that felt like lightning striking. "Thank you," Tyler managed. She nodded once, then walked away, her dark hair swinging behind her like a curtain falling on a stage. Tyler stood there for a long moment, his heart doing strange things in his chest before the bell rang, and the hallway erupted into motion, swallowing him back into invisibility. The rest of the day passed in the usual blur of classes Tyler couldn't afford to fail and conversations he wasn't part of. By 3:15, when the final bell released him from academic purgatory, Tyler felt the familiar pull toward Old Joe's Diner. It wasn't much. A greasy spoon on the corner of Riverside and 12th with cracked vinyl booths, and a jukebox that only played songs from the 70s. But it was warm, and Joe didn't kick you out if you made a plate of fries last 2 hours, and the corner booth by the emergency exit had become Tyler's unofficial office. He walked the 8 blocks from school, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, watching the neighborhood shift from suburban sprawl to urban decay. Riverside High sat in the good part of town, where lawns were mowed and cars were new. Tyler's apartment building sat in the part where sirens were background music and gunshots were punctuation marks. The transition happened gradually. Clean streets gave way to cracked sidewalks. Boutique coffee shops became liquor stores with bars on the windows. By the time Tyler reached Old Joe's, he was home in the only way that mattered. This was his world, and he knew how to survive it. The diner's bell chimed as he pushed through the door. Joe, a barrel-chested man in his 60s with forearms like hams, looked up from the register. "Usual spot's open," Joe grunted. "Thanks." Tyler slid into the corner booth, the one with the rip in the vinyl that leaked yellow foam, and pulled out his calculus homework. Mrs. Chen had assigned 30 problems. Tyler had understood maybe 5 of them, but he'd worked through all 30 anyway because failing wasn't an option. His scholarship depended on maintaining a 3.5 GPA. His future depended on that scholarship. Freeze Joe appeared tableside, order pad ready. Yeah, small and water. Joe's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "You eat anything else today, kid?" Tyler thought about the granola bar he'd split with Nana Claire for breakfast. "I'm good." Joe grunted again, but Tyler saw him scribble something extra on the pad. 10 minutes later, when the fries arrived, there were more than usual, maybe double, and they came with a side of coleslaw Tyler hadn't ordered. "On the house," Joe said before Tyler could protest. "Got extra. Gonna go bad anyway." It was a lie they both pretended to believe. "Thanks, Joe." Tyler ate slowly, making it last, working through the calculus problems between bites. He was on problem 12 when the bell chimed again. Rachel Valentine walked in. Tyler's pencil stopped mid-equation. He watched her scan the diner, her gaze methodical, assessing. She clocked the exits, a front door, kitchen emergency door, by Tyler's booth. Her eyes lingered on that last one for a fraction of a second longer than normal, and Tyler noticed the way she evaluated angles, sight lines, escape routes. It wasn't the behavior of a normal teenage girl. It was tactical, trained. Then she walked to the window booth and sat down, her back to the wall facing the street. Tyler stared at his homework, but the numbers had stopped making sense. Why was she here? This wasn't the kind of place girls like Rachel came to. This was for kids like him. Kids who counted pennies and made fries into dinner. Rachel pulled out a textbook, calculus, same as his, in a notebook. When Joe came over, she ordered a Cobb salad and unsweetened iced tea, the kind of order that cost $12. She didn't even blink. Tyler went back to his homework, hyper-aware of her presence 10 feet away. He snuck glances when he thought she wasn't looking. Watched the way she chewed her bottom lip when she was concentrating. The way her fingers drummed against the table in some unconscious rhythm. The way she kept checking her phone like she was expecting a call that never came. She looked lonely. Tyler understood lonely. An hour passed. Rachel barely touched her salad. Tyler made his fries last as long as humanly possible. The October sun sank lower, painting the diner in shades of gold and amber. That's when Tyler noticed the car. A Dodge Charger, gunmetal gray, rolled past the front window. Slow, deliberate, the kind of slow that meant the driver was looking for something. Tyler frowned. Something about it felt wrong. Off, like a note played out of tune in a familiar song. He went back to his homework, but his attention was split now, half on derivatives, half on the street outside. 5 minutes later, the Charger came back. Same car, same slow cruise past the window. Tyler could see the driver this time, male baseball cap, pulled low sunglasses, even though the sun was setting. Tyler's stomach tightened. That instinct, the one he'd developed growing up in neighborhoods where being aware kept you alive, started whispering, "Wrong, this is wrong." He glanced at Rachel. She'd stopped working on her calculus. Her posture had changed, straighter, more alert. Her eyes tracked the car as it passed. She'd noticed too. For a brief moment, their eyes met. A flash of recognition passed between them. They both knew something was wrong. The Charger disappeared around the corner. Tyler tried to focus on problem 17, but his knee was bouncing now, adrenaline starting to trickle into his bloodstream for reasons he couldn't articulate. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he was paranoid. Maybe the Charger appeared a third time. This time it didn't pass. It slowed to a crawl directly in front of the diner. The passenger window rolled down with mechanical precision. Tyler's brain screamed danger before his conscious mind could process why. He saw the arm emerge from the window, saw the gun black and brutal and wrong, saw the barrel swing toward Rachel's booth like a compass finding north. Time fragmented into heartbeats. Tyler didn't think. Thinking took time, and time was the one thing he didn't have. He moved. "Get down!" The words tore from his throat as his legs propelled him out of the booth. 3 strides. 12 feet between his corner and Rachel's window seat. 12 feet between life and death. Rachel looked up, her eyes meeting his. In that split second, Tyler saw her hand move toward her bag, trained response, reaching for something, but there was no time. Tyler hit her like a freight train, his shoulder driving into her chest, his arms wrapping around her waist, his momentum carrying them both backward. The chair toppled. They crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs and terror. But even as they fell, Rachel was moving too. Her hand grabbed Tyler's shoulder, pulling him down harder, her other arm coming up to protect his head. She'd seen the gun too, was trying to shield him even as he shielded her. Tyler twisted as they fell, making sure his back faced the window, making sure his body covered hers completely. The world exploded. The automatic weapon fire was deafening. Glass became razor rain, each shard catching the dying sunlight as it filled the air. Wood splintered. Vinyl erupted. The smell of gunpowder mixed with fryer grease and teenage fear. Something punched through Tyler's left shoulder blade. Hot. Burning, like being branded with a white-hot iron, then again lower near his spine. The second bullet hit with enough force to drive the air from his lungs. Fire, pure liquid fire flooding his back. His lungs couldn't find air. His vision started to tunnel. But beneath him, warm and alive and trembling, Rachel was screaming. Screaming meant alive. Alive meant he'd done it right. Around them, Old Joe's had transformed into chaos. People were diving under tables, scrambling for exits. Someone was shouting about calling 911. The jukebox had been hit, spurting sparks and dying mid-song. Tyler tried to hold on, tried to stay conscious, but darkness was creeping in from the edges of his vision, like ink spreading through water. "Don't move." Rachel's voice cut through the ringing in his ears, sharp and commanding, despite the tears streaming down her face. "Oh God, don't move. There's so much blood." Tyler tried to speak, but blood bubbled between his lips. The taste was copper and wrong. He managed. "You okay? You're shot. You're fucking shot." Rachel's hands were on his face, trembling. "Why did you don't even know me. Why would you?" Tyler tried to smile. It probably looked more like a grimace. Seemed like the thing to do. Somewhere far away, sirens began to wail. Closer, much closer, Tyler heard the roar of motorcycle engines. Lots of them, like a swarm of mechanical hornets, all converging on this shitty burger joint in this shitty part of town. Rachel heard them too. Her tears stopped like someone had flipped a switch. She fumbled for her phone with blood-slicked hands, managed to hit a speed dial number despite her shaking fingers. "Code red," she said, her voice suddenly cold and controlled despite the tears still wet on her cheeks. "Old Joe's on Riverside. They found me." A pause. Tyler could hear a man's voice on the other end, deep and furious. "I'm okay, but the boy who saved me." Rachel's voice cracked. "Dad, he's dying. Dad, please." Tyler tried to ask what she meant, but the darkness was closing in fast now, the gray edges of his vision creeping toward the center like a closing iris. The last thing he saw was Rachel's face hovering above him, like a moon, beautiful and terrible and afraid. The last thing he heard was the thunder of motorcycles growing louder and louder until it shook the broken windows and rattled his bones. The last thing he felt was Rachel's hand gripping his, holding on, like he was the only solid thing in a world gone mad. Her other hand pressed against the wounds in his back, trying desperately to stop the bleeding. Then the darkness swallowed him whole. Consciousness returned in pieces, beeping first, rhythmic and insistent, dragging Tyler back from wherever he'd been. Some dark place that had been surprisingly peaceful, quiet, without pain. Then pain. Oh God, the pain. His back felt like someone had driven railroad spikes through his shoulder blades and set them on fire. Every breath was agony, like shards of broken glass grinding against his lungs. Then smell. Antiseptic. Floor wax. The particular chemical cocktail that meant hospital. Tyler's eyes cracked open. White ceiling, fluorescent lights humming overhead. An IV line snaking into his left arm, clear fluid dripping steadily. "Easy there, kid. Don't try to sit up." Tyler's head rolled to the side. A man sat in the chair beside his bed, and Tyler's pain-fogged brain tried to process what he was seeing. Big. That was the first word that came to mind. The man was huge, 6'5", at least built like a granite monument, with arms the size of Tyler's thighs and a chest that could probably stop bullets. His head was shaved clean, covered in flame tattoos, that licked up from his neck like he'd barely escaped hell. His beard was steel gray and perfectly trimmed, framing a face that had clearly seen its share of fights. He wore a leather vest a cut Tyler's brain supplied from somewhere over a black t-shirt. Patches covered the leather. A rocker across the top read, Ironclad Kings MC. Below that, Gunner. On the opposite side, another rocker, California. Motorcycle Club. This man was in a motorcycle club, and he was sitting beside Tyler's hospital bed like it was the most natural thing in the world. Tyler blinked, tried to speak. His throat felt like sandpaper that had been left in the desert for a decade. Gunner reached for a plastic cup with a bendy straw, held it to Tyler's lips with surprising gentleness. Small sips, doctor's orders. The water was the best thing Tyler had ever tasted, cold and clean and real, and proof he was alive. Better, Gunner asked. Tyler nodded, which sent a spike of pain down his neck that made him wince. Then the memories crashed back like a tidal wave. The gun, the window shattering. Rachel's scream, his own blood pooling on the checkered linoleum. Rachel, Tyler's voice came out as a rasp. She's fine, not a scratch on her. Thanks to you. Relief flooded through Tyler so intense it almost hurt worse than the bullets. She was okay. He'd done it. She was alive and uninjured and safe. How long was I out? 14 hours. You coded once in the ambulance, but the docs got you back. Had to shock your heart twice. Gunner's expression was unreadable behind his beard. 2 bullets. One collapsed your lung, had to reinflate it. The other just missed your spine by half an inch. Doctor said you got lucky. Tyler didn't feel lucky. He felt like he'd been hit by a truck, then reversed over, then hit again for good measure. My grandma, Nana Claire, she must be already taken care of. Mrs. Brennan's been here twice. Nice lady. Worried sick but handling it. Hugs hard. Gunner's mouth quirked in something almost like a smile. Club made sure she got home safe both times. Also arranged for someone to check on her daily, make sure she's got everything she needs while you're laid up. Tyler stared. Why what? Why what? Why are you helping us? You don't even know me. I don't know you. I don't. Tyler's voice broke slightly. I don't understand what's happening. Gunner leaned back in his chair, which creaked ominously under his weight. The chair looked like doll furniture compared to his massive frame. That girl you saved, Rachel Valentine, that's Marcus Garrett's daughter. Marcus is our VP, Vice President of the Ironclad Kings. Gunner's gray eyes held Tyler steadily. She's club royalty, princess, most protected person in this city. Tyler's brain struggled to process this information through the morphine haze. I didn't know that. I just saw the gun and I moved. I couldn't let her. We know you didn't know. That's exactly what makes it matter. Gunner's voice was firm. You didn't do it for reward. Didn't do it for recognition. Didn't do it because you knew who her daddy was or what the club could do for you. You did it because it was right, because she was in danger and you couldn't live with yourself if you didn't try. He paused. That's rare, kid. That's valuable. That's the kind of character that means something. Before Tyler could respond, the door opened. If Gunner was intimidating, the man who walked in was something else entirely. Marcus Garrett looked like violence given human form, like someone had taken every nightmare about bikers and condensed them into 6 feet 3 inches of muscle scars and barely controlled fury. He was maybe 240, all of it hard muscle and scar tissue that spoke of a life lived on the edge. His head was shaved smooth, his beard shot through with gray, that somehow made him look more dangerous, not less. A scar ran from his left eyebrow all the way down to his jawline, pulling his face into a permanent expression of controlled menace. He wore his cut over a black t-shirt, his massive arms covered in elaborate tattoos that told stories Tyler couldn't read but could feel. The patches on his leather proclaimed him VP, second in command of the Ironclad Kings, the man who stood between the president and everyone else. But it was his eyes that held Tyler frozen. Dark, intelligent, assessing. The eyes of a man who'd seen everything life had to throw at him and had thrown it back twice as hard. The eyes of a predator who was currently evaluating whether Tyler was prey or something else. This him, Marcus's voice was gravel in a cement mixer, rough and deep. Yeah, Steele. This is Tyler Brennan. Marcus approached the bed slowly, deliberately, like he was giving Tyler time to process his presence to decide whether to be afraid or not. He pulled up a second chair, normal size, looking comically small under his bulk, and sat down, elbows on his knees. For a long moment, he just looked at Tyler, studied him, assessed him like he was a complex equation that needed solving. Tyler fought the urge to squirm under that intense scrutiny. Everything about Marcus Garrett radiated danger, but Tyler was too tired and too drugged to properly appreciate the fear he should probably be feeling. "You know who I am?" Marcus finally asked. "Rachel's father," Tyler said, his voice steadier than he felt, "and VP of the Ironclad Kings." "That's right." Marcus's expression didn't change. "You know what you did yesterday?" "I tried to help. You threw yourself on top of my daughter when bullets were coming through that window. You took 2 rounds in the back. You could have died." Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You should have died. Doctor told me if that second bullet had been half an inch to the right, it would have severed your spine. You'd be paralyzed for life, pissing into a bag, never walking again. You understand that?" Tyler swallowed hard. He hadn't really thought about that. Hadn't thought about anything except getting Rachel down, getting her safe. "Is Rachel really okay?" Tyler asked. "No injuries at all." And that's when Marcus's expression cracked. Not much, just a slight softening around the eyes, a barely perceptible relaxation in his massive shoulders. But it was there, and it transformed his face from terrifying to almost human. "She's perfect, not a scratch. Shaken up but physically unharmed. You made absolutely certain of that." Marcus reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement like he was approaching a skittish animal, and gripped Tyler's forearm. His hand was rough, heavily calloused, scarred from decades of hard living. The hand of a man who'd built things and broken things in equal measure. "You gave me the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. You gave me my daughter's life." Tyler didn't know what to say to that. What could you possibly say? "I didn't really think about it." He admitted the words, feeling inadequate even as he said them. "I just moved. Saw the gun and moved. There wasn't time to think." "I know. That's what makes it honorable." Marcus released Tyler's arm and sat back, his dark eyes never leaving Tyler's face. Most people freeze when bullets start flying. Natural human response. Brain shuts down, body locks up, survival instinct says hide. But you ran toward the danger to save a girl you didn't even know. That tells me something about who you are." "I know her," Tyler said softly. "I mean, I don't know her, but I've seen her at school. She eats lunch alone, does her homework by herself, seems—" He trailed off, unsure how to finish that sentence without sounding creepy or presumptuous. "Lonely," Marcus finished for him, his voice quiet. "Yeah, she is. Being my daughter comes with a price. Hard to make real friends when your dad's in an MC and your life's potentially in danger from rival clubs or people who want to hurt me through her. She's had bodyguards her whole life, sometimes visible, usually not. That's shooting. Those were scorpions, rival club. They've been pushing boundaries, and attacking my daughter was them declaring war." He stood up, and Tyler noticed for the first time that there were other people in the hallway outside his room. Men in cuts standing guard. Tyler's room wasn't just protected, it was fortified. "I need to ask you something important," Marcus said, his tone shifting to something more businesslike. "And I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that?" Tyler nodded, even though moving his head sent fresh pains shooting down his neck and spine. "The guys who did this, the Scorpions, they're our enemies. They've been testing us, pushing into our territory, dealing where they shouldn't be dealing. This shooting, attacking Rachel, that was an escalation, a declaration of war." Marcus's expression hardened, all the softness disappearing like it had never been there. "We're going to respond. That's not a question, that's a fact. But before we do, I need to know. Do you remember anything about the shooter, Demar? Any details at all that might help us find them?" Tyler closed his eyes, pulling details from the chaos of memory. It felt important to get this right, to give Marcus everything he could remember. Dodge Charger, gunmetal gray, older model, maybe 10 years. Dent in the rear quarter panel, driver's braided is tinted windows but not factory after. Market too dark to be legal. I didn't see the shooter's face clearly, just his arm and the gun when he raised it. Black leather jacket. The gun was Tyler paused, trying to remember. Big, automatic, maybe an Uzi or a Mac-10, I don't know guns that well, but it was the kind that sprays a lot of bullets fast. When he opened his eyes, Marcus was smiling. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who just caught the scent of prey. That's more than enough. That's perfect, actually. He nodded to Gunner. Send that to Blaze. Tell him to check traffic cams in a 5-block radius around Old Joe's. That dense distinctive should be easy to spot on camera. Gunner pulled out his phone and stepped into the hallway, already typing. Marcus turned back to Tyler, and his expression softened slightly again. You need anything? Food that doesn't taste like cardboard books to read, someone to threaten the nurses into giving you better pain meds. Despite everything, the pain, the confusion, the surreal nature of having a motorcycle club VP sitting beside his hospital bed, Tyler almost smiled at that. I'm okay, he said. Bullshit. You're a 16-year-old kid recovering from gunshot wounds in a hospital room that probably costs more per hour than your family makes in a week. You're not okay, and that's fine. But you will be. Marcus headed for the door, his boots heavy on the linoleum floor, then paused with his hand on the doorframe. Your grandmother, Claire Brennan, right, lives with you in that apartment on 5th. Tyler nodded, wondering how much the club had already learned about him. She's a good woman. Came in here yesterday, held your hand while you were unconscious, prayed the rosary over you for 3 hours straight. Worried sick about you. Marcus's voice was gentle. We're making sure she's taken care of while you're in here. Food bills of anything she needs. That's not charity, that's respect. You saved my daughter, you're owed. Thank you. Tyler managed his throat tight. Don't thank me yet. Marcus looked back at his expression, serious and unreadable. When you get out of here, we're going to talk about the future, about options, about what comes next for you. Options. You saved my daughter. That debt doesn't get paid in cash or handshakes or a pat on the back. It gets paid in family and protection in brotherhood. Marcus's gaze was intense, boring into Tyler like he was trying to see straight through to his soul. The ironclad kings take care of our own. And whether you knew it or not, the second you threw yourself on those bullets, you became ours. Think about that. With that cryptic statement, he left his presence, seeming to suck some of the oxygen out of the room with him. Tyler lay there, his mind reeling, trying to process what had just happened. Family brotherhood. What did that even mean? He was just a kid who'd made a split-second decision. He wasn't. He didn't have long to wonder. 5 minutes later, the door opened again and Rachel walked in. She looked different from the untouchable girl at school. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail instead of the sleek style she usually wore. Her face was scrubbed clean of the minimal makeup she sometimes wore, revealing dark circles under her eyes that spoke of a sleepless night. She wore an oversized hoodie probably borrowed from someone in the club, hanging almost to her knees in jeans with ripped knees that looked like they'd come from genuine wear rather than fashion. She looked younger like this, more vulnerable, more real, more like a girl who'd watched someone nearly die for her. Hi, she said softly, hovering by the door like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to come closer, like Tyler might blame her for what had happened. Hi, Tyler echoed. His heart was doing weird things in his chest, and he didn't think it was related to the collapsed lung that had been reinflated. I wanted to come sooner, but Dad said I should wait until you were awake. Said you needed rest more than visitors. She trailed off, worrying at her bottom lip in that way Tyler had noticed at the diner. Can I sit? Yeah, of course. She pulled the chair Marcus had vacated closer to the bed and sat down, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Tyler could hear the beep of his heart monitor, the hum of the hospital machinery, the distant sound of nurses talking in the hallway. Finally, Rachel said, "Thank you." Tyler shook his head gently, mindful of the pain. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You saved my life. You almost died saving my life. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, and Tyler could see her fighting to keep her composure. Why did you do it? You don't even know me. I wanted to know you, Tyler admitted before his brain could stop his mouth. The morphine was making him honest in a way he probably wouldn't have been otherwise. I mean, not in a creepy way, just you seemed interesting and lonely. I've been watching you at school for the past 3 weeks, not in a stalker way, just noticing you, and I thought maybe we could be friends. Maybe you needed a friend. A tear slipped down Rachel's cheek, cutting a path through the exhaustion on her face. Well, we're definitely more than friends now. You can't take bullets for someone and stay at the friend level. That's not how it works. What level are we at then? Tyler asked, managing a weak smile despite the pain. Rachel laughed, a wet, slightly hysterical sound that was half laugh and half sob. I don't know. Bonded for life, you're stuck with me forever now. Those are the rules. She wiped at her eyes with the sleeve of the oversized hoodie. Dad's already decided your family, which fair warning means you're probably going to have bikers following you around for the foreseeable future. They're very protective of people they consider theirs. I noticed, Tyler said dryly, thinking of Gunner's massive presence and the guards in the hallway. I'm sorry, Rachel said suddenly, her voice cracking. I'm so sorry you got hurt because of me. I'm sorry my life is so complicated that people shoot at me. I'm sorry that my father's choices mean I can't have normal friends, or go normal places, or live a normal life. I'm sorry that you're lying in a hospital bed with holes in your back because you tried to help me. Stop. Tyler reached out with his good arm, the one without the IV and the monitors, and took her hand. Her skin was soft, warm, alive proof that his split-second decision had been the right one. You didn't ask for those guys to shoot at you. You didn't put that gun in their hands. You didn't create the situation. This isn't your fault, Rachel. None of this is your fault. Rachel squeezed his hand hard, like she was trying to anchor herself to something real, something solid in a world that had tilted sideways. You're too nice. You know that, way too nice for this world, for my world. Someone's got to be, Tyler said, echoing what he'd said to himself 1,000 times. Being kind cost nothing, and sometimes it was the only thing that kept the darkness at bay. They sat like that for a while, hand in hand, not speaking. Outside the window, Tyler could see the sun moving across the sky, afternoon settling into evening. He'd lost almost a full day to unconsciousness and surgery. Another day survived. Another day closer to what? He didn't know anymore. His whole life had been about survival, scraping by, staying invisible, making it to tomorrow with enough money for food and rent, making sure Nana Claire had her medications, making sure his scholarship stayed intact so he could escape this life, eventually go to college, become something more than a poor kid from a bad neighborhood. But now, lying in this hospital bed with Rachel's hand in his and motorcycle club members guarding his daughter's survival, felt like the smallest part of a much bigger equation. He'd saved someone, mattered to someone, been seen by someone. What happens now? He asked quietly, not entirely sure what he was asking about. His recovery, his life, this strange new connection between them. Rachel looked at him with those gray eyes that had haunted his quiet moments at Old Joe's, the eyes that had met his across a crowded cafeteria and silently thanked him for standing up to Kate Morrison. Now, she smiled, and it was equal parts promise and warning. Now you heal, and then we figure out what it means to be family with the Ironclad Kings. Dad doesn't use that word lightly, Tyler. When he says your family, he means it. Protection, support, brotherhood, but also obligations. Expectations, a whole world you probably never wanted to be part of. Tyler thought about that. A world of motorcycles and leather cuts and men with scars and tattoos. A world of violence and loyalty and codes he didn't understand. A world that had nearly killed him already. But also a world where a massive biker sat beside his bed to make sure he was safe. Where his grandmother was being taken care of. Where a girl with sad eyes held his hand and promised he mattered. Something told Tyler his invisible days were over. Whether that was good or bad, he'd have to wait and see. But as Rachel sat beside him, her thumb tracing small circles on the back of his hand, Tyler thought it might, just might, turn out to be good. 3 days in the hospital taught Tyler Brennan several things he'd never known before. First, morphine made calculus impossible, but also made him care significantly less about that fact. The numbers swam on the page like fish in murky water, and Tyler found he didn't really mind. Second, hospital food was designed by people who'd never actually eaten food before and had only heard it described secondhand. It made him appreciate even the greasiest, saltiest diner fries Old Joe had ever served. Third, the Ironclad Kings took the concept of guard duty very, very seriously. It was like having a rotating honor guard of tattooed, leather-clad sentinels who viewed his hospital room as Fort Knox. Gunner worked mornings, appearing at 6 a.m. sharp with coffee for himself that smelled infinitely better than anything the hospital cafeteria offered. He'd sit in his chair reading motorcycle magazines with titles like Chrome and Thunder and Road Kings, occasionally looking up to make sure Tyler was still breathing. Sometimes he'd bring contraband candy bars that melted on Tyler's tongue like heaven real food smuggled in against hospital policy, once an entire pizza that they demolished together while the nurses pretended not to notice the grease-stained box in the trash. Blaze took afternoons. He was leaner than Gunner, maybe 6 feet tall, with the build of a runner rather than a linebacker. Sharp features, dark hair pulled back in a short ponytail, eyes that never stopped moving, constantly assessing threats and exits. He'd brought a chess set on day 2, a battered travel board with pieces that had seen better days and smelled faintly of motor oil, and proceeded to methodically destroy Tyler in game after game while explaining tactics in a voice that suggested he'd learned strategy in places far more dangerous than board games. Chess is like life, kid, Blaze said, moving his knight to threaten Tyler's queen. It's not about the piece you take now. It's about the position you create for later. Think 3 moves ahead, always. Viperstone took knights. He lived up to his road name, silent as death itself, watchful as a predator, radiating the kind of coiled menace that made nurses knock before entering and doctors announce themselves from the doorway. He sat in the corner like a piece of dangerous furniture, rarely speaking, just watching everything with eyes that missed nothing. Tyler got the sense that if anyone tried to harm him, Viper would strike faster than his namesake and twice as lethally. On day 4, Dr. Patel delivered the news Tyler had been both hoping for and dreading. "You're healing well. Better than I expected, honestly." She was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and zero patience for bullshit or excuses. "Your age helps tremendously. Young bodies bounce back faster, better cell regeneration, stronger immune response. But you'll need physical therapy for at least 6 weeks, possibly 8, depending on how you progress. No heavy lifting for 3 months minimum. No contact sports for 6 months. And these," she tapped the bandages on Tyler's back with clinical efficiency, "will scar significantly. The bullets damage considerable tissue. You'll have permanent marks." "That's okay," Tyler said, and he meant it. He'd never been the kind of guy who worried about his appearance, who cared about looking perfect or unmarked. Scars seemed like a fair price for Rachel's life. More than fair. "You can go home this afternoon, but I want you to promise me you'll follow the PT regimen exactly as prescribed. No shortcuts, no tough guy nonsense, no deciding you know better than your physical therapist." Her eyes narrowed. "Your back took serious trauma. The bullet that missed your spine, it missed by 8 millimeters. 8. If you don't let it heal properly, if you push too hard, too fast, you could have chronic pain for the rest of your life. Nerve damage, mobility issues. Do you understand? I promise. I'll do exactly what they tell me." Dr. Patel studied him for a long moment, then glanced at the door where Gunner currently filled most of the frame like a tattooed mountain. "Your friends have been very attentive. More attentive than most families, honestly." "Yeah," Tyler said, not sure how else to respond or what else to call them. "They paid your entire hospital bill in cash." Her expression was carefully neutral, professionally blank. $73,000. That doesn't happen often. Actually, that doesn't happen ever in my 26 years of practice." Tyler blinked. $73,000. That was more money than he'd see in years, maybe decades. That was more than Nana Claire's annual income. That was "they're grateful," he managed weakly. Dr. Patel made a note on her tablet, her stylus scratching across the screen. "Well, grateful or not, make sure they understand that you're not invincible. You survived because you got extremely lucky. Next time," she shook her head firmly, "try very hard not to get shot, Mr. Brennan. Your body won't tolerate it as well a second time. I'll do my absolute best to avoid bullets from now on." A hint of a smile crossed her stern face. "See that you do. I'll have the discharge nurse bring your paperwork and prescriptions. Pain medication, antibiotics, wound care instructions. Follow everything exactly. Any fever over 101, any increased pain, any signs of infection, you come back immediately." "Understood." "Understood? Thank you, Dr. Patel, for everything." After she left, Gunner stepped into the room, his massive frame making the doorway look normal size for once. He was grinning, the expression transforming his intimidating face into something almost friendly. Heard the good news. You're sprung. Freedom awaits. Guess so. Still can't quite believe I'm alive. Steele wants to see you before you go. Finish up some business, make sure you're set. Gunner's expression turned more serious. You up for a visit or you need more rest first? Man's been patient, but he's eager to talk to you. Important stuff. Tyler's pulse kicked up a notch. He hadn't seen Marcus since that first day, though Rachel had mentioned her father was handling business, which Tyler was learning was code for doing scary motorcycle club things that people didn't talk about in polite company. Things that probably involved the Scorpions and retribution and justice delivered outside the bounds of law. I'm up for it, Tyler said, pushing himself more upright in the bed and trying not to wince at the pain that lanced through his back. Gunner nodded and stepped into the hallway. Less than 30 seconds later, Marcus Garrett walked in, and the room suddenly felt smaller. The air pressure different, like a storm system had just moved through the door. Today, Marcus wore his full-cut all patches and pins that meant things in the EMSA world Tyler was only beginning to understand. VP rocker, California bottom rocker, pins that probably indicated rank achievements, years of service. But it was the expression on his face that made Tyler's stomach tighten with something between anticipation and anxiety. Satisfaction. Deep satisfaction mixed with something darker, something final and absolute. How you feeling, kid? Marcus asked, pulling up the familiar chair and settling into it with the ease of someone who'd spent considerable time in hospital rooms. Better. Ready to get out of here. Ready to sleep in my own bed. Good. That's real good. Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping low enough that only Tyler could hear, even though Gunner had stepped outside to give them privacy. Because we need to talk about what happened, about what comes next. Tyler nodded, waiting. You remember what you told me about the car, the Charger with the dent? Yeah, gunmetal gray, dented rear quarter panel on the driver's side. That dent you mentioned, and we found it. Traffic camera caught the Charger 2 blocks from Old Joe's heading east right after the shooting. Ran the plate through our sources. Stolen, of course. These idiots aren't complete amateurs, but the VIN led us to a chop shop in Scorpion territory. Mechanic there was very helpful once we explained the situation. Marcus's smile was cold predatory. Very cooperative. Tyler's mouth went dry. Did you find the shooter? The driver. We found everyone involved. Marcus's smile was the kind that made Tyler grateful it wasn't directed at him. The driver, the shooter, and the Scorpion lieutenant who ordered the hit. Took us 3 days of surveillance, a bit of aggressive persuasion, and calling in some favors with people who owed us. But we got all 3. They had some very interesting things to say once we convinced them to talk. Tyler didn't ask what convince meant. He wasn't sure he wanted to know. His imagination filled in the blanks with images from movies, dark warehouses, chains, methods of persuasion that left no permanent marks but extracted every piece of information. They're done, Marcus continued, his voice flat and final. The driver and shooter are currently explaining themselves to the police, complete with signed confessions and evidence we may have helped arrange. Security camera footage we happened to discover, ballistics evidence, the gun itself conveniently found with their fingerprints all over it. They'll be in prison for the next 20 years minimum. Attempted murder assault with a deadly weapon conspiracy. Stack the charges right, and they'll die behind bars. The finality in those words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Tyler understood what wasn't being said, what couldn't be said openly, even here in a private hospital room. What had happened in whatever warehouse or basement or dark place the ironclad kings used for their brand of justice before the official justice system got involved. He should have been horrified, should have been scared, should have been questioning the morality of vigilante justice and extra-legal consequences. Instead, he felt a grim, fierce satisfaction burning in his chest. Those men had tried to kill Rachel, had shot him, had filled Old Joe's diner with bullets and terror. And now they'd faced consequences, swift, certain consequences. Was that wrong? Probably. Was it justice? Maybe not the legal kind, but justice nonetheless. Sitting in this hospital bed, his back still throbbing with every breath, drugged on morphine and gratitude, Tyler found it hard to care about moral ambiguity or philosophical questions about the nature of justice. Thank you, he said quietly, meaning it from his core. Marcus's eyebrows rose slightly. You're thanking me for what exactly? For making sure they can't hurt anyone else. For making sure Rachel's safe. For Tyler struggled to find the right words. For caring enough to do something about it. Damn right I did something about it. They threatened my daughter, my family. There's no forgiveness for that, no second chances, no mercy. Marcus reached into his cut and pulled out an envelope, cream-colored and thick. Which brings me to why I'm really here. You're getting out today, which means you're going back to real life. School, your grandmother, homework, all the normal teenage stuff. But that life's going to yip on me affair in the house. You need to understand that. He handed Tyler the envelope. Inside was a stack of bills, all hundreds. Tyler's hands shook slightly as he counted. 50 bills, $5,000. I can't, Tyler started, his throat tight. It's not charity, Marcus interrupted firmly. It's compensation for what you did, for what you lost, for what you gave. He ticked off on his scarred, calloused fingers. You missed a week of school that affects your scholarship, your grades. Your clothes were completely destroyed by bullets and glass. Every piece you were wearing is evidence now. Your grandmother's been stressed to hell and back, probably aged a year in the past 4 days. This covers all of that. This makes sure you don't fall behind because you did the right thing. It's too much. $5,000 it's not enough. It's not remotely enough, but it's the start. Marcus's expression softened infinitesimally. Kid, you saved my daughter's life. You took bullets meant for her. Money can't repay that. All the money in the world couldn't repay that. But I can make sure you and your grandmother don't have to choose between rent and food anymore. I can make sure you don't have to survive on $2.47 worth of fries and stolen soda. I can make sure Nana Claire gets her medications without having to decide which ones she can afford this month. That's the absolute least I can do. Tyler's eyes burned with tears he refused to let fall. When was the last time someone had looked out for him like this? When was the last time anyone had cared whether he had enough to eat? Whether his grandmother could afford her heart medication? Whether he was struggling? Never. The answer was never. There's something else we need to discuss, Marcus said, his tone shifting slightly. At school, I heard you've been having some problems. A boy named Cade Morrison and his friends. They've been making your life difficult. Tyler's jaw tightened. Of course the club had looked into his life. Of course they knew about the bullying, the locker incidents, the constant low-level harassment that had been his existence for 2 years. It's fine, he muttered. I can handle it. It's just high school stuff. It's not fine and you shouldn't have to handle it alone, but it will be handled. Marcus stood up, his 6'3" frame towering over the hospital bed. The guys who've been giving you shit, they're going to learn some manners. Not from me directly. I don't threaten kids, that's not how I operate. But his smile was predatory, showing teeth. Let's just say their fathers and I are going to have some conversations. Father to father, man to man. About how their sons should treat people. About respect and consequences. About how the world works when you mess with the wrong person's family. Before Tyler could respond, before he could process the implications of that, there was a knock on the door. Gunnar stuck his head in, his expression lighter. Steal Rachel's here, and she brought what looks like Santa's entire workshop in bag form. Rachel entered carrying a duffel bag that looked almost as big as she was straining with whatever was stuffed inside. She dumped it on the foot of Tyler's bed with a heavy thump that made the mattress bounce. Clothes, she announced, slightly breathless. Since yours got shredded by bullets and glass and are currently sitting in an evidence locker downtown. I guessed on sizes, you're what, medium, shirt 30, waist. She didn't wait for confirmation. Also your homework from the past week. I'm sorry, but Mrs. Chen absolutely insisted someone deliver it and threatened to mark you absent if I didn't. Some books Blaze said you might like, chess books, strategy books, and she pulled out a leather jacket, not a full cut, not the patched vest of a member, but a nice jacket nonetheless. Black leather with silver zippers, simple and classic, and probably worth more than Tyler's entire current wardrobe. The club wants you to have it, she said, her expression softer now. It's not membership or anything official. You're not being patched in or asked to prospect. Just a thank you, a symbol that you're under protection, that you matter to us. Tyler ran his fingers over the smooth leather feeling, the quality, the weight, the craftsmanship. It was the nicest piece of clothing he'd ever owned, nicer than anything he'd ever imagined owning. Try it on, Rachel urged, setting it beside him on the bed. With Gunner's help, the big man supporting Tyler's weight and moving him carefully to avoid stressing the wounds, Tyler sat up fully for the first time in days, gritting his teeth against the pain that lanced through his back like hot knives. He shrugged into the jacket, feeling the leather settle around his shoulders like armor. It fit perfectly, the leather supple and warm and comfortable like it had been made specifically for him. Looks good, Marcus said with a nod of approval. Suits you, kid. Makes you look like you belong somewhere. Tyler caught his reflection in the bathroom mirror across the room. The skinny kid in the thrift store clothes was gone. The invisible boy who'd haunted Riverside High's hallways had vanished. In his place was someone who looked tougher, more substantial, more real, like he belonged somewhere, like Marcus had said, like he was part of something bigger than himself. Thank you, he said, his voice rough with emotion he couldn't quite name, for everything. The jacket, the money, taking care of Nana. I don't know how to... I can't... That's just the beginning, Marcus said, cutting off Tyler's stumbling gratitude. When you're healed up, when you're back on your feet and ready, we'll talk more about what comes next, about opportunities, about what it means to be part of this family. But for now, he clapped a massive hand on Tyler's shoulder, the good one always mindful of the injuries. You focus on getting better, on taking care of your grandmother, on being a kid, on healing, on going back to school and living your life. The future can wait. And maybe spending some time with me, Rachel added with a small smile that made Tyler's heart do complicated acrobatics in his chest. If you want, no pressure, but I'd like that. I think we have a lot to talk about. Tyler looked at her, at this girl he'd saved, this girl whose father commanded loyalty through fear and respect and absolute authority, this girl who somehow looked at him like he was somebody worth knowing, worth saving, worth caring about. Yeah, he said, and he meant it more than he'd meant anything in his life. I'd really like that too. Marcus's phone buzzed loudly in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened into something Tyler was learning to recognize as his club business face. Gotta roll. Important meeting I can't miss. He pointed at Tyler with one thick finger. You take care of yourself. Follow the doctor's orders exactly. And if you need anything at all, day or night emergency, or just a question, you call Gunner. He'll make sure it happens. Understood. Understood. Thank you, Mr. Garrett, for everything. Marcus or Steele, Mr. Garrett makes me feel old. He paused at the door, looking back with an expression Tyler couldn't quite read. You're a good kid, Tyler Brennan. Brave, honorable, the kind of man I'd be proud to call family. Remember that. After Marcus left his boots heavy in the hallway, Rachel perched on the edge of Tyler's bed, careful not to jostle his injuries. He likes you, she said, her voice quiet and a little awed. Really likes you. That's incredibly rare. Your dad? Yeah, Dad doesn't trust easily, doesn't let people in, doesn't hand out cash and jackets and protection to random people. She picked at a thread on her hoodie, not meeting Tyler's eyes. You impressed him. You impressed all of them. Hell, you impressed me, and I'm not easy to impress. I just did what anyone would do. No, Rachel said firmly, finally meeting his gaze. You did what a hero would do. There's a massive difference. Most people would have frozen, would have hidden, would have saved themselves. You ran toward the bullets. You threw yourself over me without hesitation. That's not normal. That's extraordinary. Before Tyler could argue, before he could deflect or minimize or insist he was just a regular kid who'd made a choice, Gunner appeared in the doorway again. Discharge papers are ready at the nurse's station. They're processing the prescriptions, now should be ready in 20 minutes. You got a ride home, kid, or you want one of us to take you? Tyler thought about Nana Claire's ancient sedan, a 1998 Honda Civic that may or may not start on any given day and burned oil like a chimney. I think I need a ride, if that's okay. More than okay, it's done. Gunner grinned. I'll pull my truck around to the patient loading zone. Rachel, you staying with him till he's ready? Obviously. As Gunner left to get his vehicle, Rachel squeezed Tyler's hand, her fingers warm and steady. Welcome to the family, Tyler Brennan. Her smile was equal parts excited and apprehensive. Fair warning, it's going to be a wild ride. The ironclad kings don't do anything halfway. Protection, loyalty, brotherhood. It all comes with intensity you probably can't imagine yet. But you saved me. That makes you one of us now, whether you're ready for it or not. Looking at her, at this beautiful, complicated, dangerous girl who'd somehow become the center of his world in the span of a bullet's flight, who'd gone from a lonely stranger at a diner to someone holding his hand in a hospital room, Tyler couldn't help but feel like maybe, just maybe, he was ready. His life as the Invisible Boy was over. Done. Finished completely. What came next, he had absolutely no idea. But for the first time in his 16 years of scraping by and surviving, Tyler Brennan wasn't facing the unknown alone. And that made all the difference in the world. The ride from Mercy General Hospital to Tyler's apartment building should have taken 15 minutes through normal city traffic. With Gunnar driving his massive F250 matte black with the Ironclad Kings logo subtly airbrushed on the tailgate in silver that caught the light just right, and three other bikes forming an escort around them like a presidential motorcade. It took 25 minutes. Because apparently when the Ironclad Kings moved through town, traffic got out of the way. Cars pulled aside. Pedestrians stared. Even the traffic lights seemed to cooperate, turning green at just the right moments. Tyler sat in the passenger seat, his new leather jacket feeling both foreign and right against his skin, watching the familiar streets of his neighborhood pass by outside the window. Everything looked the same. The bodega on the corner where he bought day-old bread for 50 cents a loaf. The laundromat where Nana spent every Saturday afternoon reading her Spanish-language romance novels while clothes tumbled. The basketball court where he'd learned early to avoid eye contact and keep moving if he wanted to avoid getting picked on, or worse. Same cracked sidewalks, same graffitied walls, same tired buildings with their paint peeling like sunburned skin. But Tyler felt different, changed in ways he was only beginning to understand. Like he'd been one person when he walked into Old Joe's diner and become someone else entirely when he'd thrown himself over Rachel. "You're quiet," Gunnar observed, navigating around a double-parked delivery truck with the ease of someone who'd driven these streets for decades. "Just thinking," Tyler said, watching his neighborhood scroll past. "About," Tyler gestured vaguely at the window at the world outside. "Going back to school, to normal life. Except nothing's normal anymore, is it? Everything's changed. I've changed." Gunnar was silent for a moment, his massive hands steady on the wheel. Then he spoke, his voice thoughtful. "Normal's overrated, kid. You know what's better than normal? Being alive, being valued, having people who've got your back unconditionally." He glanced at Tyler, his gray eyes serious. "You got shot protecting one of ours. That makes you one of ours, whether you wear a patch or not, whether you ever prospect or not. You understand what that means?" "Not really," Tyler admitted. "I mean, I think I'm starting to, but it's all happening so fast. 4 days ago, I was invisible. Now I've got bikers escorting me home from the hospital. It means you're not alone anymore. It means when someone fucks with you, they fuck with the whole club, all 47 patched members, plus prospects and hangarounds. It means," Gunnar pulled up to Tyler's building, a 4-story walk-up with crumbling brick facade and bars on the ground floor windows. "It means you matter. To us. To this brotherhood. That's not something we say lightly." The words hit Tyler harder than he expected. You matter. When was the last time someone had said that to him? When had anyone ever made him feel like his existence made a difference? Never. The answer was never, until 4 days ago. Nana Claire was waiting on the stoop, wrapped in her flowered shawl despite the mild October weather that didn't really require it. The moment she saw Tyler climbing carefully out of Gunnar's truck, moving slowly, wincing with each motion, she was in motion. She moved faster than a 70-year-old woman with bad knees and arthritis should be able to move, practically running down the steps with her arms already reaching. "My boy. My Tyler." Gunnar had barely put the truck in park before she was yanking open the passenger door with strength born of relief and terror and love, pulling Tyler into a hug that made his healing wounds scream in protest. Tyler didn't care. He hugged her back fiercely, breathing in her familiar scent of lavender soap and peppermint candies, and home, feeling her tiny frame shake with sobs against his chest. She was crying and scolding him simultaneously, in rapid-fire English, peppered with Spanish expressions Tyler had grown up hearing. Something about foolish boy and so brave, and never again you hear me. Never again. Tyler just held her, letting her get it all out, letting her be scared and relieved and angry all at once, letting her be the grandmother who'd raised him alone after his mother died, who'd sacrificed everything to keep him fed and clothed and educated. When she finally pulled back, her weathered hands came up to cup his face, her eyes the same dark brown as his own, searching his features like she was memorizing them all over again. Then she turned to Gunnar with fierce eyes that had cowed bigger men than him. You kept him safe like you promised. Gunnar's Spanish was clearly limited, but he understood enough. He nodded respectfully. Yes, ma'am, we took good care of him. Best doctors, 24-hour guard, everything he needed. She studied Gunnar for a long moment, this massive tattooed biker who probably outweighed her by 180 pounds and could break most men in half without breaking a sweat, then nodded sharply satisfied. Good. Thank you. You are good men, strange men, scary men, but good hearts. She patted his arm like he was a well-behaved dog who just performed a clever trick. Then she was herding Tyler toward the building, one hand firmly on his elbow, supporting him like he might collapse at any moment, which, given how wobbly his legs felt after 4 days in bed, wasn't entirely unreasonable. Gunnar called out from behind them, Tyler. Wait up! Tyler turned carefully, mindful of his back, to find Gunnar holding out a cell phone. Not Tyler's ancient flip phone that barely made calls and couldn't text to save its life, but a newer smartphone in a heavy-duty protective case. From the club, Gunnar explained, walking over to hand it to him. My number's already programmed in under favorites. So Steele's, Rachel's, Dutch's, Blazes, and Vipers. You need anything at all, day or night, emergency or question, or just to talk, you call. We'll answer. That's a promise, boss. Tyler took the phone, feeling its weight in his hand. Another gift he didn't know how to accept, didn't feel he'd earned. Thank you for everything. The guarding, the company, Gunnar waved it off. Just get some rest, kid, heal up, and keep that jacket close when you go out. There's people in this neighborhood who will think twice about starting shit if they see you wearing King's gear. Word's already spreading about what happened, about who you are now. As Gunnar drove away, the other bikes falling in behind him, like an honor guard, departing after a military funeral, Nana Claire squeezed Tyler's arm. Good people, she said quietly in her accented English. Dangerous people, yes, but good hearts underneath. They protect you. They protect me. I am grateful. Tyler wasn't sure good was the right word for the ironclad kings, but loyal, protective, willing to commit felonies on your behalf and call it justice. Yeah, those definitely fit. The apartment was exactly as Tyler had left it 4 days ago. Cramped, cluttered with a lifetime of accumulated possessions, but spotlessly clean because Nana kept their space immaculate, even if she couldn't do anything about the peeling wallpaper, or the radiator that clanked like a dying robot, or the water stains on the ceiling. But something was different. Tyler noticed it immediately. The refrigerator was full, not just full stuffed. Fresh vegetables, fruit, milk, eggs, real meat instead of the discount stuff that was mostly gristle. The kind of groceries Nana usually looked at wistfully in the store but couldn't afford. Nana saw him looking. The big one, Gunnar. He came 3 times while you were in hospital. Each time he brought money, cash in envelope, for food, for bills, for medicine. He made me take it. Her eyes were suspicious but grateful. Where does all this money come from, Tyler? So much money for people who don't know us. Tyler chose his words carefully, settling into the worn couch that had been his mother's before she died. From people who are grateful I helped their daughter. People who take care of family. That's all, Nana, I promise. That is not all. She fixed him with the look that had made him confess to breaking her favorite vase when he was 7, the look that saw through every lie and evasion. These men, this club, they are dangerous. Yes, criminals maybe. Sometimes, Tyler admitted, because lying to Nana had never worked and wouldn't start now. When they need to be. But they're not bad people. They have their own code, their own honor. They protect their own. And you? Are you dangerous now? Are you one of them? Tyler thought about the bullets in his back, about the cold satisfaction he'd felt hearing that Rachel's attackers would spend decades in prison, about the way Cade Morrison had gone pale when he saw Tyler in the leather jacket that screamed ironclad King's protection. I don't think I'm dangerous, he said slowly, but I'm not going to be invisible anymore either. I'm not going to let people push me around. I'm not going to hide. Does that make me dangerous? Maybe, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Nana was quiet for a long moment, her weathered hands folded in her lap, her eyes distant, like she was weighing something important. Then she reached across the gap between couch and armchair and took his hand in both of hers. When your mother died bringing you into this world, I promised her I would keep you safe, keep you good, raise you right. Her grip tightened, her calloused palms were rough against his skin. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe safe and good is not enough in this world. Maybe you need to be strong too, protected too. Nana, these men, they protected you when you were hurt. They protected me when I was afraid. They made sure we could eat, could pay rent, could get medicine, could live without fear of eviction or starvation. She met his eyes steadily. Your mother, God rest her soul, she would not like these people. She would say they are criminals, that they bring violence, that you should stay away. But she is not here, and we are. And you are alive because you have a good heart, and these men have strong backs. Sometimes God works in mysterious ways. She stood up, kissed his forehead with dry lips that smelled like peppermint, and began clearing the table they hadn't used yet. Subject closed. Tyler sat there on the couch processing what had just happened. His grandmother, who prayed the rosary every single night, without fail, who crossed herself when passing any church, who'd raised him in the Catholic faith, even when money for the collection plate was scarce, had just given her blessing to his association with a motorcycle club. The world really had turned completely upside down. She'd made his favorite meal, roast chicken with potatoes and carrots, the chicken falling off the bone, the vegetables seasoned with the spice blend she'd learned from her own mother back in Mexico. Tyler's stomach growled loudly. Hospital food had been edible at best, barely qualifying as actual nourishment. As they ate together at their small kitchen table, Nana filled him in on what he'd missed. The neighbors had been gossiping like it was their full-time job, which in some cases it basically was. Mrs. Ramirez from 3B was convinced Tyler had joined a gang and would bring violence to their building. Mr. Park from across the hall thought Tyler was in witness protection because of all the intimidating men with guns who'd been around. The super had asked if they needed to increase security. The truth that Tyler had saved a motorcycle club VP's daughter and become part of their extended family was somehow both more and less dramatic than their wild theories. But that night the nightmares came. Tyler had been expecting them. Dr. Patel had warned him about PTSD, about trauma responses, about how the brain processes violent experiences. But expecting them didn't make them any less terrifying. He was back at Old Joe's Diner, the window exploding inward in slow motion, each shard of glass catching the light like a deadly prism. Rachel's scream splitting the air, the gun barrel tracking toward her. But this time when Tyler threw himself over her, the bullets didn't stop coming. They kept hitting him over and over, tearing through his back, and he couldn't protect her. Couldn't save her. Could only watch helplessly as the bullets found her anyway, as blood bloomed across her gray sweater, as her eyes went wide and empty. He woke up screaming. Nana was there instantly, like she'd been waiting outside his door, holding him, rocking him like she had when he was small and afraid of monsters under the bed. Except now the monsters were real, and they carried guns, and they'd already found him once. Breathe, mi niño, breathe. You are safe. You are home. It was just a dream, just a bad dream. But Tyler's heart was hammering so hard he could feel it in his throat, his shirt soaked with sweat that smelled like fear, his back burning where phantom bullets had struck in the nightmare. It felt real, Nana. It felt so real. I know, baby, I know. But it was not real. You are here. You are safe. The girl is safe because of you. She held him tighter. This will happen again. More nightmares. I don't know, maybe. Probably. Tyler's voice sounded small and young even to his own ears. The new phone on his nightstand, because of course he'd brought it into his bedroom, had been unable to put it down since Gunnar had given it to him, buzzed with an incoming text. From Rachel, can't sleep either. Nightmares want to talk. Tyler stared at the message, his hands trembling slightly. How did she know? Could she somehow sense what he was going through? Another text appeared. I get them too, after my shooting when I was 14. The nightmares, the panic, the fear. It gets better, I promise. But you don't have to face them alone. Call me if you need to talk, anytime. Tyler looked at Nana, who nodded understanding, and quietly left the room, closing the door behind her to give him privacy. He called. Rachel answered on the first ring, her voice clear and awake like she'd been expecting his call. Hey, hey, bad one. Yeah, really bad. I couldn't save you in the dream. The bullets kept coming and I couldn't. His voice broke. I know exactly what that feels like. Rachel's voice was steady, calm, and anchor in the storm. When I was 14, there was a rival club called the Iron Reapers. They wanted to send my dad a message to hurt him where it would matter most. They found me at a park near my friend's house. 3 of them. Tyler's breath caught in his throat. I had training. Dad had made sure of that since I was 12, Krav Maga, tactical awareness, situational response. But training and reality are completely different. Theory versus practice. They shot me in the shoulder before I could react, before my training could kick in. Would have done worse, probably would have killed me or taken me, but the club showed up. Dad had trackers on me, even then had people watching. They got there in time. Rachel's voice was matter of fact, like she was describing a trip to the grocery store rather than a near-death experience. But I had nightmares for months afterward. Still get them, sometimes years later. Dreams where they don't arrive in time, where I'm not fast enough or strong enough, where everything goes wrong. Does it get better, the nightmares? Honestly, you learn to live with them. The dreams don't completely go away, but they get less frequent, less intense. You get stronger. You build coping mechanisms. And having people who understand, who have been through similar things, that helps more than anything. She paused. Want me to talk you through some breathing exercises, grounding techniques, things that help me when the panic gets too intense. For the next hour, Rachel talked him through it. Breathing exercises that slowed his racing heart. Grounding techniques that anchored him to the present moment. 5 things he could see, 4 things he could hear, 3 things he could touch, 2 things he could smell, 1 thing he could taste. The sound of her voice, steady and calm and real, pulling him back from the edge of panic. They talked about other things too. School, books, the strange overlap in their lives, that they'd both been lonely in crowded hallways. Both felt invisible despite being surrounded by people. How calculus made sense but people didn't. How they both liked the smell of old books and rain on pavement. By the time exhaustion finally pulled Tyler towards sleep, the panic had receded, replaced by something warmer. Connection. Understanding. The knowledge that someone else knew what he was going through and cared enough to help. Thank you, he whispered into the phone, his eyes already closing. For this, for understanding, for being there. That's what family does, Rachel said softly. We take care of each other. Now get some rest, Tyler. I'll see you Monday at school. And if you need me before then, if the nightmares come back or you just need to talk, you call me. Day or night. Promise me. I promise. Good. Sweet dreams, Tyler Brennan. Monday, school. Tyler had almost forgotten about school in the surreal bubble of hospital rooms and motorcycle clubs and profound life changes. Monday morning arrived too quickly, dragging Tyler from uneasy sleep filled with fragmented dreams that weren't quite nightmares, but weren't peaceful either. At 7:15, a firm knock on the apartment door had Nana shuffling to answer it, muttering about people who didn't understand reasonable morning hours. Tyler heard familiar voices and emerged from his bedroom to find Gunnar and Blaze standing in their small living room, looking massive and out of place among Nana's delicate furniture and religious icons. Morning, kid, Gunnar rumbled, looking far too awake and alert for this ungodly hour. We're your ride to school today. I can take the bus, Tyler protested weakly. You don't need to. You could take the bus, Blaze interrupted, his sharp eyes glinting with something like amusement. Or you could show up in style. Make a statement. Let everyone know things have changed, your choice in Ireland. Tyler looked at Nana, who simply shrugged and pushed a thermos of coffee into his hands. Go with them. Be safe. Make me proud. 30 minutes later, Tyler walked through the front gates of Riverside High School, flanked by 2 massive bikers in full cuts, their motorcycles idling at the curb behind them like chrome and steel dragons, engines rumbling in a way that made nearby car alarms whimper. Every head turned, every single head. The quad, normally buzzing with a chaotic energy, of pre-class socializing fell silent as Tyler crossed toward the main building. The kind of silence that happens when something impossible is occurring, when reality has shifted in a fundamental way. He saw Melissa Park's jaw literally drop open, saw Kevin Tran stop mid-step and nearly walk into a trash can, saw Cade Morrison and his football buddies freeze like deer caught in headlights, their faces going pale with what Tyler recognized as fear. Whispers erupted in their wake like wildfire spreading through dry brush. Is that Tyler Brennan with bikers? Are those ironclad kings? Holy shit, is he in a gang now? Did you see his jacket? What happened to him? Gunnar walked Tyler right to the main office, ignoring the stares, and whispers his massive hand, hovering protectively near Tyler's shoulder without actually touching, aware of the healing wounds, careful not to cause pain. You good from here? Gunnar asked when they reached the office doors. Yeah, thanks for the ride. I appreciate it. Anytime, kid. Anytime at all. Gunnar's gaze swept the hallway with the practiced assessment of someone trained to identify threats, his eyes landing on Cade's group with laser focus. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture did. A subtle shift that somehow broadcast across the distance. I see you. I know you. And I will remember your face. Cade went even paler if that was possible. After Gunnar and Blaze left engines roaring loud enough to rattle the windows and set off 2 more car alarms in the parking lot, and Tyler stood in the hallway acutely aware of every eye on him, every whispered conversation, every stare. Holy shit, Brennan. Kevin Tran approached cautiously like Tyler might suddenly explode into violence. Are you in a gang now? Like for real? No, Tyler said truthfully, adjusting his backpack. I'm not in a gang. I'm just friends with some people who ride motorcycles. Those weren't just people who ride motorcycles. Those were ironclad kings. My dad works in insurance and he says they're... Kevin lowered his voice to a whisper. They're dangerous. Like seriously dangerous. Like organized crime, dangerous. They're loyal, Tyler corrected, his voice firm. They protect their people. There's a difference between dangerous and loyal, Kevin. An important difference. Before Kevin could respond, before the conversation could continue down that road, Rachel appeared at Tyler's locker like she'd been waiting for exactly this moment. She wore black jeans and a gray sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, her usual "don't fuck with me" expression firmly in place. But when she saw Tyler, when their eyes met across the crowded hallway, her face transformed. A genuine smile that lit up her features and made his heart do complicated acrobatic maneuvers in his chest. You came, she said, and there was relief in her voice. I wasn't sure if you'd be ready to come back so soon. Had to. Mrs. Chen's calculus homework won't do itself. And apparently if I miss any more school, my scholarship gets reviewed. Walk me to class, Rachel asked, and it was barely a question. They fell into step together, and Tyler felt a shift in the atmosphere like a physical pressure change. Rachel Valentine, mysterious transfer student girl who'd rejected every social overture since arriving untouchable ice queen, was walking with Tyler Brennan, smiling at him, acting like they were friends. More than friends. The whispers intensified. Tyler caught fragments as they passed, saved her life. Took bullets. Those scars on his back, his family now. At Rachel's first period classroom, she paused with her hand on the doorframe. Lunch, sure, where her smile turned mischievous, almost wicked. Cafeteria, center table, let's give them something to really talk about. Let's make it official. Lunchtime at Riverside High was a carefully orchestrated social hierarchy that had been established and refined over decades. The popular kids athletes, cheerleaders, student council, anyone who mattered, ruled the center tables with iron fists and cutting remarks. The nerds claimed the corner by the windows where the light was good for reading. The art kids took over the tables near the vending machines where they could sketch during lunch. The band kids had their section, the theater kids had theirs. And the outcasts, they ate in bathrooms, hallways, empty classrooms, or off campus if they could afford it and had transportation. Tyler had always been an outcast, invisible, even among the invisible. But today when he entered the cafeteria with his tray of mystery meat that might have been chicken, and definitely was some kind of protein and wilted salad that had seen better days, Rachel was waiting at a center table. Not at the edge where the less popular kids were sometimes tolerated. Not in the corner where she could hide. Dead center, right in the middle of the social hierarchy where everyone could see, where the most popular kids sat, where Cade Morrison usually held court. She'd saved him a seat directly beside her. Tyler hesitated for just a moment. This was Cade Morrison territory. This was social suicide. This was you coming or not. Rachel called out loud enough for half the cafeteria to hear her voice carrying across the space with absolute confidence. Fuck it, Tyler thought. He'd already taken bullets. High school politics seemed pretty tame and manageable in comparison. He sat down beside her. The cafeteria erupted in whispers and shocked stares. Ignore them, Rachel said calmly, stealing a French fry from his tray with the casual intimacy of someone who'd done it 100 times before. They'll get over it, or they won't. Either way, who cares? Will they get over it? Probably not, but that's their problem, not ours. She leaned in conspiratorially, her gray eyes bright with something Tyler was learning to recognize as mischief. Want to hear something funny? Always. Cade Morrison's dad got a visit from my dad yesterday afternoon. Mr. Morrison Sr. works in construction. Morrison and Sons, pretty big company around here. They do a lot of business with firms that have connections to the club, with people who owe my dad favors. Rachel's smile was sharp as broken glass. My dad didn't threaten him or anything overt. Nothing actionable. He just mentioned very casually, very politely, that his daughter had made a friend at school, a friend named Tyler Brennan, a friend who deserved to be treated with respect and kindness, and how disappointed he'd be if anything negative happened to that friend. Tyler blinked. Rachel. Funny thing happened right after that meeting. Mr. Morrison called Cade, directly pulled him out of football practice. Had a long, intense conversation about bullying and consequences and how the world really works. About how some people are under protection and you don't fuck with them. About respect and choices in the future. Her eyes sparkled. Cade apparently got very pale and very quiet and very agreeable. As if summoned by the mention of his name, Cade Morrison appeared at their table. But this wasn't the swaggering asshole who'd shoved Tyler into lockers for 2 years, who'd dumped his backpack in toilets, who'd made his life a daily exercise in survival and humiliation. This was a nervous kid who looked like he might throw up from stress, his hands clenched at his sides, his face the color of spoiled milk. Hey, Brennan, Cade said, his voice strained and unsteady. Can I talk to you privately, just for a minute? Tyler glanced at Rachel, who nodded her permission. They moved to an empty corner of the cafeteria far enough from the tables that they couldn't be overheard, but close enough that everyone could see them interacting. Look, Cade started, not meeting Tyler's eyes, staring at the floor like it held the secrets of the universe. My dad told me what you did. Saving that girl, saving her. He jerked his chin toward Rachel. He told me about the shooting, about you taking bullets. That's pretty badass, honestly. Legitimately heroic. Okay, Tyler said neutrally, not sure where this was going, but willing to hear him out. And he also told me very clearly, very seriously, that her dad is someone I really, really don't want to piss off. That you're under their protection now. That you're essentially untouchable. Cade swallowed hard as Adam's apple, bobbing. So I'm sorry for being a dick, for the locker stuff and the name-calling and all of it. For making your life hell for 2 years for basically no reason, except that you were an easy target and I'm an insecure asshole who takes out my problems on people who can't fight back. Tyler stared. Cade Morrison was apologizing. Actually, genuinely apologizing. Cade Morrison, who'd once shoved Tyler's head into a toilet bowl and flushed it, was standing here looking genuinely remorseful and terrified. Why? Tyler asked. Because he needed to understand the motivation. Why apologize now? Because you're scared of what might happen if you don't. Because your dad scared the shit out of you. Yes, 100%. Yes, my dad scared me. He's never been that serious, that intense. Made it crystal clear that if anything happens to you, anything at all, it'll come back on me 10 times worse. Cade ran a hand through his carefully styled hair, messing it up. But also, and I know you have no reason to believe me, no reason to trust anything I say, but you did something genuinely brave. You threw yourself on bullets to save someone. And I've spent 2 years making your life miserable for literally no reason except that you were poor and quiet and wouldn't fight back. That's not cool. That's not okay. That makes me a piece of shit, regardless of what your girlfriend's dad might do to me. It wasn't a perfect apology. It was motivated at least 50% by fear and self-preservation, rather than genuine remorse and moral awakening. But it was something. It was more than Tyler had ever expected to get. Okay, Tyler said after a long moment. Here's what's going to happen. You leave me alone from now on, completely alone. We don't have to be friends. We don't have to hang out. We don't have to pretend to like each other. But we don't have to be enemies either. You go your way, I go mine. We treat each other like human beings if our paths cross. Can you do that? Relief flooded Cade's face like water breaking through a dam. Yes, absolutely yes. And if anyone else gives you shit, if Jake or Connor or Brett or anyone tries anything, you let me know. I'll handle it. I'll make sure they understand the situation. Appreciate it. As Cade walked away looking like a death row inmate who just received an unexpected pardon, Tyler returned to the table where Rachel was waiting with barely contained amusement. Well, she asked, her eyes dancing. How did that go? He apologized, seemed genuine, mostly scared, but also maybe a little bit actually sorry. Good, he should be both, scared and sorry. That's the appropriate response. She studied Tyler's face, her expression becoming more serious. You okay? You look kind of weird. Overwhelmed, maybe? I'm fine, just adjusting. To what specifically? To people being afraid of me, or being nice to me because they're afraid of your dad? To all of this. He gestured broadly at the cafeteria at the kids who were still staring at his new leather jacket and his new life that had erupted into existence in the span of a bullet's flight. 4 days ago, I was invisible. Now everyone's staring. Everyone knows my name. Everything's different. Rachel's expression softened with understanding and something that might have been guilt. I know it's a lot. Trust me, I know. Growing up as Marcus Garrett's daughter taught me exactly what it's like to have people's perception of you change because of circumstances outside your control. But you'll get used to it. You'll adapt. Humans are incredibly adaptable. Though, you saved my life, Tyler. That changed things. For both of us. Changed everything fundamentally. She took his hand under the table where no one else could see her fingers warm and solid and real. But some changes are good. Some changes are worth it. Looking at her, at this girl who'd brought chaos and danger and belonging and purpose into his carefully invisible life, who'd gone from a lonely stranger at a diner to someone holding his hand and defending him and caring about him, Tyler found himself nodding. Yeah, he said, meaning it from his core. Some changes are definitely good, worth everything. The rest of the day passed in a surreal haze of attention Tyler had never experienced before. Teachers who'd never called on him suddenly knew his name. Students who'd looked through him for 2 years, now moved out of his way in the halls, gave him space, treated him with something between respect and fear. His locker, which had been vandalized or broken into at least a dozen times, remained untouched. Tyler Brennan was visible now, undeniably, unavoidably visible. And he wasn't entirely sure how he felt about that. Physical therapy was hell incarnate. 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tyler reported to Riverside Rehabilitation Center, where a woman named Denise, who looked like a friendly grandmother but had the soul of a drill sergeant, cheerfully informed him that pain was just weakness leaving the body, before making him do exercises that felt like someone was driving molten nails into his spine while simultaneously trying to tear his muscles from the bone. Arm raises, 20 reps, don't stop until I say stop. Tyler gritted his teeth until his jaw ached and lifted his arms, feeling the scar tissue in his back pull and scream and protest. Every movement sent lightning bolts of agony down his spine. Sweat broke out on his forehead. Good. Now shoulder rotations, slow and controlled. By the end of each 90-minute session, Tyler was drenched in sweat, his back on fire, his arms trembling like leaves in a hurricane, his entire body screaming that this was a terrible idea and he should stop immediately. But he never complained, never quit, never asked for mercy, because quitting meant healing wrong, meant being weak, meant the bullets had won, meant he'd be that kid who took a bullet and never fully recovered, who walked funny and couldn't lift things and was limited forever. And Tyler Brennan wasn't about to let bullets win. Not a chance in hell. What made it bearable was Rachel. She'd started coming to his PT sessions after the first week sitting in the waiting area with her calculus homework spread out on her lap. But by the third week, she was in the therapy room with him talking to Denise and then doing modified versions of his exercises alongside him. You don't have to do this, Tyler said one Wednesday afternoon, watching her struggle through arm raises with 3-pound weights while he fought through the same motion with just his body weight. This isn't your recovery. You don't need to be here. I know I don't have to. Rachel's face was flushed with effort, a light sheen of sweat making her skin glow. But we healed together. That's how this works. You took bullets for me. The least I can do is do some arm raises with you. Denise approved wholeheartedly. Excellent for muscle memory and motivation. Moral support during recovery is clinically proven to improve outcomes. Plus, young lady, your form needs work. Those shoulders are too tense. What Tyler didn't know, what Rachel didn't mention during those PT sessions, was that she had her own training regimen that went far beyond therapeutic exercises. It wasn't until one Thursday afternoon at the clubhouse waiting for Marcus to finish a meeting so he could drive them both home that Tyler discovered the truth. He'd been sitting in the main room absently watching Gunnar tune up a Harley when he heard sounds from the back of the building. Rhythmic impacts, grunts of effort, the unmistakable sounds of combat. Curious Tyler followed the noise to a converted garage that served as the club's gym. Weight equipment lined one wall. Heavy bags hung from reinforced ceiling beams. Mats covered the floor. And in the center of those mats, Rachel was sparring with Viper Stone. Tyler stopped in the doorway, frozen watching. Rachel moved like water, like violence given fluid form. She ducked under Viper's punch, pivoted on her back foot, and drove her knee toward his midsection. Viper blocked, but she'd anticipated that was already transitioning into an elbow strike that he barely deflected. They separated, circled, came together again. Viper swept her legs. Rachel went down but controlled the fall. Rolled, came up in a defensive stance, her hands positioned perfectly for maximum efficiency and minimum wasted motion. Good, Viper said, his voice carrying the first hint of approval Tyler had ever heard from the silent enforcer. But you telegraphed that elbow. Tightened your shoulder half a second too early. Against someone trained, that's death. Again, Rachel demanded, not even breathing hard. They reset and went again. Viper moved with economical precision, each strike calculated, testing her defenses, pushing her limits. Rachel matched him move for move, her training evident in every block and counter. This wasn't casual self-defense. This was serious martial arts training. Years of practice distilled into muscle memory and instinct. After several more exchanges, Viper called a break. That's when Rachel noticed Tyler watching from the doorway, his jaw hanging open slightly. How long have you been standing there? She asked, grabbing a towel to wipe sweat from her face. Long enough to realize I had no idea you could do that. Tyler gestured vaguely at the mats at the evidence of her skill. That was, you're really good. Like scary good. Krav Maga since I was 12. Dad insisted. Rachel shrugged like it was no big deal, like being able to take down a man twice her size was just normal. When you grow up as an MC princess, you learn to defend yourself, or you become a target. I chose to learn. Your girlfriend's scary kid, Gunnar commented from behind Tyler, making him jump. The big man had appeared silently, which should have been impossible for someone his size. In the best possible way. Saw her take down a prospect twice her size last month. Kid didn't know what hit him. Tyler looked at Rachel with new eyes, seeing dimensions he'd somehow missed. The girl who'd seemed so vulnerable, who he'd thrown himself over to protect, could apparently handle herself better than most people. Why didn't you tell me, he asked. Because it never came up. Because you've been focused on your recovery. Because I didn't want you to think I didn't need saving that day. Rachel's expression was complicated, hard to read. I saw the gun, Tyler. Saw it emerge from the car window. I was reaching for my bag. I carry pepper spray and a knife, always have, but there wasn't time. Even with all my training, I wasn't fast enough. You were, you didn't hesitate. That matters more than whether I can throw a punch. Tyler nodded slowly, processing this new information, adding it to his growing understanding of who Rachel Valentine really was. Not just an MC princess, not just a lonely girl at a diner, a trained fighter, a survivor, someone as complicated and layered as the world she'd grown up in. Want to learn? Viper asked suddenly, his dark eyes fixed on Tyler. Basic self-defense, street fighting, how to protect yourself when backup isn't coming. My back. We'll work around it, modified training, building core strength, learning technique over power. Viper's expression was unreadable. You got lucky once. Next time you might not have someone watching over you. Need to be able to handle yourself. Tyler looked at Rachel, who nodded encouragingly, then at Gunnar, who gave a thumbs up, then back at Viper. Yeah, Tyler said. Yeah, I want to learn. Good. We start tomorrow after your PT session. Be ready. And so Tyler's afternoons fell into a new rhythm. School where he was no longer invisible. PT with Denise 3 times a week, Rachel beside him. The clubhouse most evenings where he'd work with Viper on basic self-defense, while his back healed, learning how to fall without hurting himself, how to block efficiently, how to use an attacker's momentum against them. Blaze continued their chess lessons, each game a masterclass in strategy and thinking ahead. Life's not about the piece you take now, Blaze would say, moving his bishop. It's about the position you create for later. Gunnar taught him motorcycle maintenance, showing him how to change oil, adjust chains, red engine sounds like a language. A man who understands machines is never helpless. Gunnar explained his massive hands delicate on precision parts. Even Dutch Remington, the club president, took an interest. He'd pull Tyler aside sometimes to ask him questions about school, about his plans, about how he saw the world and his place in it. Tyler got the sense he was being evaluated, tested, measured against some standard he didn't fully understand. He just didn't know what the test was for. Not yet. Nana Claire surprisingly approved of these visits. She'd started cooking for the club her famous roast chicken that fell off the bone, her arroz con pollo, seasoned perfectly with spices from her childhood, her flan that melted on the tongue like sweet clouds. The bikers devoured everything she made and treated her like beloved royalty, like the grandmother they'd never had or had lost along the way. Good boys, she'd say in her accented English, patting Gunnar's massive tattooed arm like he was a well-behaved golden retriever instead of a former Marine who could kill a man 18 different ways. Rough on outside, but good hearts underneath. They protect you. They protect me. This is what matters. Tyler's life had fractured into 2 distinct worlds that were slowly inevitably merging Riverside High by day, where he was the kid who'd taken bullets and earned the protection of a motorcycle club, and the ironclad King's Clubhouse by evening, where he was learning what brotherhood actually meant, what loyalty looked like when it was real and tested and absolute. He was starting to realize the 2 worlds weren't as separate as he'd initially thought. They were bleeding together, merging, becoming one complex reality where the choices he made in one realm affected everything in the other. 4 weeks after the shooting, Marcus called Tyler to the clubhouse for a meeting. Not a casual visit, not a training session. A formal summons delivered by Gunnar with unusual gravity. War room. Gunnar said, his expression more serious than usual. Steele wants you there. Important shit. Real important. The war room was exactly what it sounded like, a converted office with maps of the city pinned to walls, surveillance photographs tacked to corkboards with red string, connecting them like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream, and a large table where the club's leadership gathered to discuss business, both legal and otherwise. Tyler had never been invited inside before. Prospects weren't allowed. Hang-arounds never saw it. Even some patch members didn't have access to this inner sanctum where the real decisions were made. When he entered, Tyler found Marcus, Dutch, Blaze, Viper, and 3 other members he recognized but didn't know well. The table was covered with photographs spread out like cards in some deadly game. Men, cars, buildings, locations marked on maps, the Scorpions. Come in, Tyler. Close the door behind you. Dutch gestured to an empty chair positioned at the table, not against the wall, where an observer would sit, but at the table itself. You're about to get an education about what we do, about how we operate, about what justice looks like when the system fails. Tyler sat, his heart pounding against his ribs, his hands clammy with nervous sweat. Marcus began, his voice cold and factual. You know, we dealt with the shooters, the driver, the trigger man, the lieutenant who ordered the hit. But we haven't touched the head of the snake yet, haven't cut out the cancer at the source. He tapped a photo with one thick finger. A lean man with dead eyes like a shark's and a scar across his throat that looked old and vicious. Jackson Cross. Everyone calls him Jax. He's the president of the Scorpions MC, such as it is. Marcus's voice was flat, emotionless. Former prospect of ours. We kicked him out 5 years ago for stealing from the club treasury. Took $20,000 in cash and 3 kilos of product and disappeared into the wind like smoke. He came back 6 months ago, Dutch continued, leaning back in his chair with his fingers steepled. Started the Scorpions with other rejects and wannabes and ex-cons who couldn't get into real clubs. Been pushing into our territory, undercutting our business, recruiting kids as mules and dealers. Small-time operation barely worth noticing. We let it slide initially, not worth a full-scale war over some petty bullshit. Then he ordered the hit on Rachel. Marcus set his jaw so tight Tyler could see muscles jumping. That changed everything. That crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. That was a declaration of war, whether he intended it that way or not. Blaze stood and pointed to a detailed map of the city with locations marked in red. We've been surveilling Scorpion operations for 3 weeks. Found 6 primary locations, stash houses, safe houses, their clubhouse. We've mapped every member, documented every routine, identified every weakness. This isn't guesswork. This is military-grade intelligence. Tyler stared at the map, at the photographs, at the meticulous planning that had gone into this. This wasn't just a motorcycle club. This was a paramilitary organization with discipline and resources and capabilities that went far beyond what he'd imagined. "Why are you showing me this?" Tyler asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why am I here? I'm not a member. I'm not patched. I'm just—" "Your family," Dutch interrupted firmly. "You saved Steele's daughter. You took bullets meant for her. That makes you family, and family deserves to know what happens next. Deserves to understand what we do and why we do it." Marcus leaned forward, his dark eyes boring into Tyler's. "We're moving tonight, hitting all 6 locations simultaneously. We'll dismantle the Scorpions piece by piece, location by location, member by member. Take their money, their product, their power, their credibility. And Jax," his smile was colder than Arctic ice, "Jax is going to disappear. Permanently." Tyler's mouth went dry as sand. "You're going to kill him. I'm going to make absolutely certain he never threatens my family again." Marcus's voice was flat, final. "Does that bother you? Does that conflict with your moral framework? I need to know now before we go further." Tyler thought about Rachel's screams, about Nana sleeping peacefully because she knew the Kings were protecting them, about walking through school without fear, about being able to exist without constantly looking over his shoulder. He thought about the Scorpions, about what they'd done, about what they might do again if left unchecked. And he thought about justice, about what it meant, about whether it always came from courts and lawyers and systems that were slow and imperfect and often failed the people who needed them most. "No," he said quietly, meeting Marcus's eyes directly. "It doesn't bother me." "Good answer. Honest answer." Marcus nodded approval. "Because you're coming along tonight, not to fight, you're still healing and you're not trained for combat, but to witness, to understand what it means to be under the King's protection, to see what we do for family." Tyler's pulse skipped. "I'm going with you to the operation. To observe, to learn, to understand." Marcus's hand landed on Tyler's shoulder, heavy and warm. "This is what we do for family, Tyler. This is what that word means in our world. Blood and loyalty and absolute protection. You need to see that, need to understand what you're part of now." But before the assault could happen, before the carefully planned operation could launch, everything changed in a way no one had anticipated. Tyler was at the clubhouse the next afternoon, a Friday, helping Gunnar tune up a Harley Sportster, learning how to adjust the carburetor for optimal performance, when Blaze burst into the garage, moving faster than Tyler had ever seen him move. "We got a serious problem. Finn's missing." Gunnar's head snapped up, grease-stained hands freezing mid-motion. "Missing how? Define missing." "Haven't seen him in 2 days. Not answering his phone, not at his apartment, not at any of his usual spots." And Blaze's sharp eyes were troubled. "I was going over the surveillance photos again, looking for patterns. Finn's been in the background of almost every sensitive conversation we've had about the Scorpion operation. Every single one. The implication hung in the air like poison gas, thick and choking. Finn was a prospect, young, eager, about 20 years old. He'd been hanging around for 6 months doing grunt work, proving himself worthy of consideration for a patch someday. Prospects saw things, heard things, had access to information that civilians never got. Tyler felt his stomach drop like an anchor. You think he's feeding them information. You think he's the leak. I think it's suspicious as hell, Blaze said grimly, pulling out his phone and showing photos on the screen. Look, War Room meeting March 2nd, Finn's visible in the doorway. Parking lot discussion about Rachel's security, March 5th, Finn's working on a bike 15 feet away. Kitchen conversation about timing for the assault, Finn's getting a beer from the fridge. Every single time. Marcus arrived within minutes, summoned by Gunner's urgent text. His face could have been carved from granite and rage. Explain now. Blaze did 3 minutes of evidence and timing and suspicious coincidences that added up to a pattern impossible to ignore. We need proof, Dutch said, arriving right behind Marcus, his silver hair catching the afternoon light. Can't move against a brother, even a prospect, without solid proof. That's our law. That's how we stay disciplined. Tyler stared at the photos spread across Gunner's workbench, his mind racing through possibilities and implications. Something nagged at him, some detail that didn't fit some piece of the puzzle that was slightly wrong. What if we test him? Tyler said suddenly, the idea crystallizing even as he spoke it. Feed him false information, specific information that would be valuable to the Scorpions. See if they act on it. Everyone turned to look at him. Marcus's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Keep talking. Tell him we're moving Rachel to a safe house. Give him exact details, location, time, route. Make sure he overhears it. Make it seem natural, like he's accidentally getting information he shouldn't have. If the Scorpions show up at that location at that time, Tyler spread his hands, then we know for certain we have a rat. Marcus stared at Tyler for a long moment, and then slowly, deliberately, he smiled. Smart kid, really fucking smart. Strategic thinking. Controlled test with definitive results. They set the trap that evening with theatrical precision. Made sure Finn was in the clubhouse. Made sure he was within earshot but not obviously listening. Marcus took a fake phone call in the main room, speaking loudly about moving Rachel to the safe house on Miller Road tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. sharp, small convoy, minimal security to avoid drawing attention. Then they waited, every nerve on edge, every sense heightened. Tyler barely slept that night. If he was wrong, he'd accuse an innocent man of betrayal. If he was right, someone had been feeding their enemies information for weeks, had potentially put Rachel's life in danger multiple times. At 5:30 a.m., Tyler's new phone rang. Gunner's voice was tight with controlled fury. Get to the clubhouse immediately. It happened. We were right. When Tyler arrived, still pulling on his jacket, the entire club was assembled in the main room, their faces grim as tombstones. And in the center of the room, zip-tied to a chair with professional efficiency, was Finn. His face was bruised, lips split and bleeding, but it was his eyes that told the real story. Defeated, terrified, ashamed, broken. The Scorpions hit Miller Road at 6 a.m. exactly. Marcus said, his voice deadly calm in the way that meant he was absolutely furious. Exactly where and when Finn heard us say Rachel would be. Except we weren't there. We were waiting 3 blocks away, watching them arrive, watching them realize they'd been set up. He circled the chair like a predator circling wounded prey. Want to tell us why they knew Finn? Want to explain how the Scorpions had that exact information? For a long moment, Finn said nothing. His head hung forward, blood dripping from his split lip onto his shirt. Then he broke completely, the words tumbling out in a rush. He has my sister. Finn's voice cracked like glass under pressure. Jax. He grabbed Kira 2 months ago. Just took her off the street when she was walking home from work. Said if I didn't feed him information about club operations, he'd kill her. He'd do things to her first, he said. Terrible things. Then he'd kill her slowly and make me watch. I didn't know what else to do. She's all I have. Our parents are dead. She's all the family I've got left in this world. Silence fell over the clubhouse like a heavy blanket, thick and suffocating. Tyler felt his anger deflate like a punctured tire. Finn wasn't a traitor motivated by greed or ambition or hatred. He was a desperate man trying to save his sister, caught between impossible choices, sacrificing everything to protect family. Where is she? Dutch asked, his tone gentler than Tyler expected. Where's Jax keeping her? Warehouse district on the east side. Old automotive place, been abandoned for years. He keeps her chained up, moves her every few days so I can't plan a rescue. I tried once, got close enough to see her through a window. Finn's voice broke completely. She's so thin, bruised, scared. I could see it in her eyes even from a distance. Tyler watched emotions flicker across Marcus's scarred face. Anger, calculation, something that might have been understanding or sympathy. Here's what's going to happen, Dutch said after a long pause, after exchanging looks with Marcus that communicated volumes without words. We're going to save your sister. Going to get her out of that warehouse, get her medical attention, make sure she's safe. Finn's head snapped up, hope and as disbelief warring in his eyes. You'll really save her after what I did, after I betrayed you. Then you are both leaving. Dutch continued, his voice firm, but not cruel. Tonight, the club will set you up in another state far from here. New identities if needed, enough money to start over somewhere safe. But you're done here. Forever. You're exiled. That's mercy, Finn. That's more than most traitors get. Don't waste it. Finn's head dropped again, tears streaming down his bruised face. Thank you. God, thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. But she's all I have. We understand, Marcus said, cutting off the apology. We understand exactly what you did and why you did it. Doesn't make it okay. Doesn't erase the betrayal. But we understand. He turned to Tyler, his expression unreadable. You wanted to see what justice looks like. This is it. Not everything gets solved with violence. Sometimes you solve the problem, cut your losses, and move on. That's strategy. That's discipline. Tyler nodded slowly, absorbing this lesson, understanding that the ironclad kings operated with more nuance and complexity than he'd initially understood. Violence when necessary, mercy when possible, pragmatism always. The rescue operation happened that night with the precision of a military strike. Tyler insisted on going. Marcus tried to argue, but Rachel, who'd shown up as soon as she heard what was happening, sided with Tyler. He helped catch Finn. He deserves to see this through. He's earned it. Marcus relented, but with strict conditions. Tyler and Rachel stayed back with a secondary team positioned as backup and escape. If things went sideways, if the operation failed, they'd evacuate immediately with no arguments. The warehouse sat in an industrial wasteland on the east side of Riverside, all rusted metal and broken dreams and shattered windows. The Kings surrounded it with practiced efficiency, Team Alpha covering the front entrance, Team Bravo securing the back, Team Charlie positioned on elevated ground as overwatch and sniper support. Tyler crouched behind a derelict car with Rachel Blaze and two other members whose names he didn't know, watching the assault unfold like a choreographed dance of controlled violence. Gunner led Team Alpha through the main entrance. Controlled, professional, no wasted movement, every action deliberate and practiced. Tyler heard shouts through the broken windows, a brief scuffle, the sound of flesh hitting flesh. Then Gunner's voice over the radio they'd given Tyler. Package secured, 3 tangos down, non-lethal, no civilian casualties. Moving out now. 3 minutes later, they emerged carrying a young woman, Kira, early 20s, dangerously thin, to the point of starvation, bruised like she'd been beaten regularly and recently, but alive, conscious, breathing. Finn, watching from Viper's truck under guard, broke down completely when he saw her. The reunion happened in the parking lot, Finn cradling his sister, while both of them cried while the ironclad kings stood guard around them in a protective circle. Thank you, Finn kept saying, the words broken by sobs. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't thank us, Marcus said, his voice firm but not unkind. Thank the kid who figured out you were the leak, but also figured out why. His instinct saved your sister's life. Finn looked at Tyler with red, swollen eyes full of gratitude and shame. I'm sorry I put you in danger. Put Rachel in danger. Put everyone at risk. I couldn't let her die. I couldn't. Just take care of her, Tyler said quietly, nodding toward Kira, who was barely conscious, leaning heavily against her brother. Get her somewhere safe. Get her healthy. That's all that matters now. That's all that should matter. By dawn, Finn and Kira were gone. New names, new town, new lives, courtesy of the Ironclad King's extensive underground network of contacts and resources that stretched across the country. And Tyler had learned something crucial about the club, about Marcus, about the way this world actually worked. Justice wasn't black and white. It was complicated, nuanced, situation dependent. Sometimes brutal, sometimes merciful, always pragmatic. The Ironclad Kings weren't simple criminals or straightforward heroes. They were something more complex, operating in shades of gray that the outside world rarely saw or understood. And Tyler was beginning to understand that complexity, to see the world through their eyes, to appreciate the harsh logic that governed their decisions. With Finn gone and the leak plugged like a hole in a ship's hull, the operation against the Scorpions proceeded as planned. Tyler witnessed it from Marcus's truck, was watching through night vision binoculars as the coordinated assault unfolded with military precision across 6 locations simultaneously. Team after team called in success. Location Alpha secure. 8 Scorpions in custody transferred to law enforcement with evidence. Location Bravo clear. Product and cash seized. Location Charlie neutralized. No resistance. By midnight, 5 of 6 Scorpion locations had been systematically destroyed, like dominoes falling in sequence. Members were arrested with perfectly arranged evidence or scattered into the wind. Money and product were seized. Power structures were dismantled. Only Jax's main warehouse remained like a final boss in a video game Tyler had never wanted to play. They hit it an hour later, the entire club rolling in like thunder and fury given physical form, bikes roaring, members moving with coordinated purpose. Tyler watched from the truck as Dutch kicked in the reinforced door and the Kings flooded inside like an avenging tide. Heard the shouting through the broken windows, the brief gunfire that echoed in the night, then silence that somehow felt louder than the noise. Marcus appeared in the doorway and gestured. Tyler could come in, could witness the conclusion. Inside, Jax was on his knees in the center of the warehouse, surrounded by ironclad kings like a sacrifice at an altar of justice and vengeance. His remaining men, maybe a dozen, all that was left of his organization, were zip-tied and defeated, spread across the floor like discarded toys. But Jax held something in his good hand, a detonator small and black and deadly. His other hand was shattered, destroyed by a precision shot from Blaze positioned in the rafters above. "Come any closer, and I blow this whole fucking building," Jax snarled, his voice cracking with pain and desperation. "I wired this place with enough C4 to level a city block. All of us die together if you don't back the fuck off." Marcus stopped, his massive frame tensing. "You want to die that badly, Jax? Want to take everyone with you? I want you to hurt like I've been hurt." Jax's eyes were wild, cornered animal desperate. "Your precious MC brotherhood, your codes and your loyalty. It's all poison. It's all lies. You destroy everything you touch. We kicked you out for stealing from the club. Not you, them." Jax's eyes went distant, haunted, lost in some terrible memory. Different club, different state. 5 years ago, Montana, the Iron Wolves. They came to my house in the middle of the night, said I disrespected their territory, their business. I didn't even know who they were, what territory meant. I was just a mechanic trying to make a living. His voice broke. They burned my house. My wife and daughter were inside. Emily was 6 years old. 6. I watched them burn, heard them screaming, couldn't get to them through the flames. The room went absolutely silent. Even the zip-tied Scorpions stopped struggling. "So I decided every MC deserves to burn," Jax continued, tears streaming down his face. "Started with stealing from you. Escalated to trying to take your daughter. If I can't have my family, why should you have yours? Why should any of you have anything?" Tyler felt Rachel tense beside him. She'd slipped in behind him despite orders to stay outside, and now she was staring at Jax with an expression Tyler couldn't quite read. "You became what you hated," Rachel said suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension. "The Iron Wolves targeted your innocent family. So you targeted me, another innocent girl. You became exactly what they were, the same everyday wearing different leather." Jax's eyes snapped to her, and for a moment, something human flickered across his face. Recognition, shame, understanding. "I'm sorry," Rachel continued, taking a step forward, despite Marcus's warning gesture. "I'm genuinely sorry for what happened to your family. That wasn't justice, that was murder." That was evil, but killing me won't bring them back. Blowing up this building won't resurrect your daughter. It just makes you the same as them. Just makes the cycle continue. Jax's hand trembled on the detonator, his finger hovering over the trigger. Tyler found himself stepping forward too, standing beside Rachel, his heart hammering but his voice steady. I know what it's like to feel powerless, Tyler said quietly. To feel invisible. To lose everything. My mom died giving birth to me. I grew up poor with a grandmother who could barely afford food and medicine. I've been bullied and beaten and made to feel worthless for years. He met Jax's eyes. But revenge won't fill that hole inside you. It'll just make it bigger, trust me. I know. What the hell do you know about it, Jax spat. You're just a kid. You don't know anything about real loss. I know I took 2 bullets meant for her. Tyler gestured at Rachel. I know I almost died. I know I could have let fear and anger and desire for revenge consume me. But I chose differently. I chose to protect instead of destroy. To build instead of tear down. His voice gained strength. You want to hurt MCS, then live. Tell your story. Expose what the Iron Wolves did. Be better than them. Show the world what they took from you. But don't become them. Don't let their evil turn you into a monster too. Jax stared at Tyler for a long, eternal moment. His finger trembled on the detonator trigger. Tears streamed down his face, unchecked. Then slowly the detonator clattered to the concrete floor. Marcus moved like lightning despite his size, securing the device, securing Jax, neutralizing the threat in seconds of practiced efficiency. Kid's got a point, Marcus said, surprisingly gentle as he zip-tied Jax's wrists. You want real justice? We'll make sure your story gets told. We'll make sure the Iron Wolves answer for what they did to your family. We've got connections, resources reach across state lines. But you gotta live to see it. You gotta testify. You gotta be strong enough to face them in court. Jax collapsed completely broken, but breathing defeated, but alive. 20 minutes later, the police arrived to find Jax and his men gift-wrapped with enough evidence to put them away for multiple life sentences, drug trafficking, attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy weapons charges. The list went on, each charge carefully documented and arranged. The ironclad kings were nowhere to be found when the sirens arrived, vanished like ghosts into the night. But Tyler had witnessed everything, had seen how the club operated, had seen violence and mercy intertwined like DNA strands, had seen justice delivered outside the law, but somehow still right, still necessary, still true. And he'd been part of it. His words had stopped a suicide bombing. His instinct had caught a traitor. His presence had somehow mattered in ways he was only beginning to understand. As they rode back to the clubhouse in Marcus's truck, and the adrenaline slowly draining from Tyler's system, Marcus spoke. You did good tonight. Really good. Showed strategic thinking with the Finn situation. Showed courage talking down Jax. Showed the kind of character and judgment we value. He glanced at Tyler. You're young. You're still figuring out who you are and who you want to be. But I see potential in you. Real potential. The kind that could make you a leader someday, not just a follower. Tyler nodded, too emotionally exhausted to respond with words. But he felt something settling inside him. A sense of belonging, of purpose, of having found something he didn't know he'd been searching for his entire invisible life. 3 weeks later, the clubhouse hosted a massive family barbecue that felt more like a festival than a simple meal. Tyler arrived on his own motorcycle, a used Harley Sportster that Marcus had helped him buy with money from the envelope, and Gunnar had taught him to maintain like it was a precious child. He'd gotten his motorcycle license the week before, much to Nana's terror and eventual resignation to this new reality. Rachel rode beside him on her own bike, arms wrapped around his waist, laughing as they pulled into the compound together. They'd been officially dating for 2 months now, though it felt like longer, like they'd known each other for years instead of weeks. The clubhouse yard was packed with people, brothers, old ladies, children running wild with the kind of freedom that came from being absolutely protected. The smell of grilling meat mixed with motorcycle exhaust and fresh-cut grass. Music played from speakers someone had rigged up, classic rock, but loud enough to feel in your chest, but not so loud you couldn't talk. Tyler Gunner waved him over to the picnic tables where food was being laid out in quantities that could feed a small army. Get over here. Dutch has something for you. Tyler approached cautiously, his heart rate picking up. In his experience, surprises from Dutch could range from generous gifts to terrifying responsibilities, and there was no way to predict which. Dutch stood beside a wooden box carved with intricate detail and bearing the ironclad king's logo burned into the lid. He looked more relaxed than Tyler had ever seen him, almost grandfatherly, despite the scars and the leather and the aura of command. Tyler Brennan, Dutch said formally, his voice carrying across the yard until conversation stopped and heads turned. Come forward. Tyler walked to Dutch, acutely aware of every eye on him, every member watching this moment. Open it, Dutch said, gesturing to the box. Inside was a leather vest. Not a full cut. Tyler wasn't a member, wasn't patched, hadn't earned that level of commitment. But a vest nonetheless. Black leather, simple and classic in design, well made with the kind of craftsmanship that spoke of respect and value. And on the back, embroidered in silver thread that caught the afternoon light, were 3 words, friend of the club. It's not a patch, Dutch explained, his voice clear and serious. You're not a member, you haven't prospected. You haven't earned your colors through the traditional path. But you've earned something else. You've earned our respect, our protection, our recognition as someone who matters to this brotherhood. He lifted the vest from the box and held it up for everyone to see. This means you're under our protection, means you've proven yourself through action, not just words, means you're family. Dutch met Tyler's eyes steadily. Means when you walk through this world wearing this vest, every member of the ironclad kings will know you're one of ours, and they'll protect you accordingly. Tyler's throat tightened with emotion he couldn't quite name. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Marcus rumbled from beside Dutch. Say you'll wear it with pride. Say you'll honor what it represents, Gunner added. Say you'll remember that family means something. Viper contributed his first words directly to Tyler in weeks. Tyler lifted the vest from the box, feeling its weight. Lighter than a full cut, but somehow heavier with meaning and expectation and responsibility. Yes, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Thank you. I'll wear it with pride. I'll honor it. Honor. I promise. Put it on, kid. Tyler slipped the vest over his leather jacket. It fit perfectly snug across his shoulders, the leather supple and comfortable and warm against his skin like it had been made specifically for him. The club erupted in cheers and applause. Gunner handed Tyler a root beer in a can, sweating with condensation. To Tyler Brennan, the kid with more balls than sense and a heart bigger than his brain. Everyone drank, even the children with their juice boxes, even Nana Claire, who'd been invited and had actually come raising her can of ginger ale with a smile. Even Rachel standing beside Tyler, with pride shining in her gray eyes, her hand finding his and squeezing tight. After the toast, after the cheering died down, Dutch called for attention again. Brothers, family, friends, we're here to vote on something important, something that will affect this club's future. The assembled members straightened, paying full attention to their president. Tyler Brennan has proven himself beyond any doubt. Saved Steele's daughter, identified a traitor, helped rescue an innocent woman, talked down a suicide bomber with nothing but words and courage. Dutch's voice carried weight and authority. I propose we offer Tyler a prospect position when he turns 17 this December. Give him the option to earn his patch if he chooses. No pressure, no expectations, just an open door to a future with the ironclad kings, if that's the path he wants to walk. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd like wind through grass. But before Dutch could call for a formal vote, Tyler raised his hand, his heart pounding. Can I say something first? Dutch nodded, surprised but approving. Tyler stood acutely aware of every eye on him, every member watching, waiting to hear what he'd say. I'm honored, he began, his voice starting soft but gaining strength. More honored than I can possibly express. But I need to earn this properly. Not just because I took bullets, not just because I'm dating Steele's daughter, not because of one heroic moment or one good decision. He took a deep breath. So I'd like to propose something different. Let me work with the club on community programs. Let me help rebuild the neighborhood where I grew up. Let me work with at-risk kids, teach them there are better paths than the ones I almost followed. Show this town that MCs can build, not just destroy. that we can be a positive force, not just an intimidating presence. Tyler met Dutch's eyes, then Marcus's, then Gunner's. Let me prove I can be a leader, not just a follower. Let me earn the respect of this club through sustained action and commitment, not just one moment of bravery. Then when I turn 17 in December, when I've shown what I can really do, I'll be ready to prospect. I'll have earned it properly. Silence fell over the clubhouse yard, thick and absolute. Then Marcus started laughing, the genuine surprise sound that transformed his scarred face into something almost joyful. Kid just turned down a prospect offer to propose community service. You believe that shit? Dutch was grinning too wider than Tyler had ever seen. That's thinking like a president, not a prospect. That's leadership. He turned to the assembled club. All in favor of Tyler's counter-proposal community programs, youth outreach proving himself through sustained action and leadership. Every hand went up. Unanimous. Motion passes. Dutch clapped Tyler on the shoulder hard enough to make him stagger slightly. You just earned more respect in this club than some patch members have accumulated in years. Well done, son. Very well done indeed. The celebration continued into the evening, the sun setting in shades of gold and crimson, painting the clubhouse in warm light that made everything feel surreal and perfect. Tyler found himself talking with various club members throughout the night, hearing their stories, their journeys, their philosophies about life and brotherhood and what it meant to be part of something bigger than yourself. But the moment that mattered most came later, when Marcus pulled him aside for a private conversation away from the noise and laughter. They walked to the edge of the property where the fence met open fields, where the sounds of the party faded to background music. You know, Marcus said, staring out at the darkening sky, when Rachel was born, I made a promise to her mother. Promised I'd keep our daughter safe no matter what, no matter the cost, no matter what I had to do or who I had to become. Tyler listened, sensing this was important, that Marcus was sharing something he rarely spoke about. For 16 years, I've kept that promise. I've scared off boys who looked at her wrong. I've intimidated teachers who graded her unfairly. I've done questionable things, illegal things, violent things to protect her from a world that would hurt her if it could. Marcus turned to Tyler, his expression softer than usual. And then you showed up. This skinny kid I'd never met, throwing himself on bullets without hesitation or thought for his own safety. You know what I thought when I saw you in that hospital bed full of holes, barely alive, Marcus continued. I thought that's the kind of man I want my daughter to know. Someone who acts without thinking of himself first. Someone who sees what's right and does it, consequences be damned. Someone with real honor, not just words. Marcus pulled something from his pocket, a challenge coin, embossed with the ironclad King's logo, heavy and substantial. This is my personal coin. Only a handful exist in the world. You ever need anything at all, emergency or favor, or just help, you show this coin to any king anywhere in the country, and they'll help you. No questions asked. That's my word. That's my bond. Tyler took the coin, feeling its weight in his palm, understanding the gravity of what was being offered. Thank you, Marcus. I don't know what to say except thank you. Don't thank me yet. Having this coin means you're tied to us, to our world. Things might get complicated. Life might get harder before it gets easier. Marcus's expression was serious. But you'll never face it alone. That's the promise. That's what this means. Tyler nodded, slipping the coin into his pocket where it settled next to his phone, warm and solid and real. Come on, Marcus said, his tone lightening. Let's get back before Rachel thinks I'm scaring you off. She's protective of you, you know. Threatened to learn every pressure point in the human body if I ever made you uncomfortable. Tyler laughed, and they walked back toward the light and laughter and family. As the party wound down, as families started departing and bikes roared to life, Tyler stood beside Rachel, watching the sun finally disappear below the horizon. You did good today, Rachel said softly, her hand finding his. Really good. Proposing the community service thing instead of just accepting the prospect offer that showed real character, real leadership. Dad was seriously impressed. I meant what I said. I want to earn it properly. I know you did. That's why it matters. She squeezed his hand. You're going to do amazing things, Tyler Brennan. I can feel it. You're going to change this club, change this neighborhood, maybe change this whole city. And I get to watch it happen. I get to be part of it. Tyler pulled her closer, wrapping his arm around her shoulders, feeling her warmth against his side. We're going to do it together, he corrected. This isn't just my journey, it's ours. As they stood there watching stars emerge in the darkening sky, Tyler thought about how far he'd come in just a few weeks. From invisible to unforgettable. From alone to surrounded by family. From victim to protector. His scars would never fade. The nightmares still came sometimes, though less frequently now. The memories of that day at Old Joe's Diner would stay with him forever. But so would the lessons he'd learned about courage and sacrifice, about family and loyalty, about justice and mercy, and the complicated gray areas between them. Tyler Brennan had thrown himself on bullets to save someone he barely knew. And in doing so, he'd saved himself, found himself, became himself. The invisible boy was gone forever, replaced by someone stronger, someone visible, someone who mattered. And that made all the difference in the world. 6 months' time jumped forward like a dream dissolving into morning light. Tyler, nearly 17, with his birthday approaching in December, pulled up to the new Riverside Community Center on his Harley Sportster. The engine purred beneath him like a contented cat, the sound echoing off the brick buildings that lined the street. Nana Claire rode on the back. She'd finally gotten comfortable with motorcycles after months of short trips and patient teaching. She still crossed herself before every ride and whispered prayers during acceleration, but she no longer gripped Tyler quite so tightly or screamed quite so loudly when he turned corners. The community center had been Tyler's vision brought to life through the ironclad King's resources and connections. A converted warehouse in the heart of Tyler's old neighborhood transformed into a safe space for kids who needed it. After-school programs that actually mattered. Homework help. Meals for kids whose homes didn't have food. Motorcycle maintenance classes that taught valuable skills while building confidence and self-reliance. Mentorship from club members who'd walked these same streets and survived worse. It was everything Tyler had proposed, everything he'd promised, made real through months of hard work and determination. Cade Morrison was there when Tyler arrived, volunteering with a group of middle schoolers, teaching them basic mechanics. Cade had undergone a complete transformation therapy community service, genuine remorse that went deeper than fear. He'd stopped being a bully and started being a human being. He and Tyler weren't exactly friends, but they'd found mutual respect, common ground, and wanting to make their community better. Rachel arrived moments later, parking her bike beside Tyler's with practiced ease. They'd been dating officially for 8 months now, had applied to the same local colleges, had plans to stay near family, because that's what mattered most to both of them. College applications stressed them out. SATs had been brutal, but they faced it together, studying side by side, supporting each other through panic and pressure. Marcus watched from his bike at the curb, pride evident on his scarred face despite his usual stoic expression. "My daughter chose well," he murmured to Dutch, who'd ridden over to check on the center's progress. "That kid's going places," Dutch agreed, his silver hair catching the afternoon light. "Mark my words, 10 years from now, he might be sitting in my chair. Might be leading this club into the future. Got the judgment for it. Got the character." "Nah," Marcus said with a rare smile. "He'll be wearing yours. He'll be president. I can see it already." Inside the center, Tyler stood in front of a group of kids ranging from 12 to 17 kids from his neighborhood, kids who reminded him of himself not long ago. Invisible, scared, surviving day to day without hope for anything better. "Nobody should have to be invisible," Tyler said, his voice carrying across the room, reaching every corner and every heart. "Nobody should eat alone or walk home afraid or feel like they don't matter. We're here to change that reality, to build something better than what we inherited. Together." He rolled up his sleeve, revealing the scars on his back to the kids who needed to see them, who needed to understand that he'd lived through real violence and survived. "I got these scars protecting someone I cared about, someone who mattered to me. They remind me every single day that courage isn't about being fearless or invincible. It's about doing what's right even when you're absolutely terrified, even when everything in you says to run and hide and save yourself." Tyler smiled at the kids, seeing himself in their cautious eyes. "And you all have that courage inside you already. We're just going to help you find it, help you develop it, help you become the people you're meant to be instead of the people circumstances tried to force you to become." As the kids dispersed to their various activities and programs, Rachel slipped her hand into Tyler's, her presence a constant warmth beside him. "You're good at this," she said softly, her gray eyes bright with something that looked like love, making people feel seen, making them feel like they matter. It's a gift, Tyler, a real gift. Tyler looked around the community center at kids laughing instead of fighting, learning instead of destroying, connecting instead of isolating. At Gunner teaching motorcycle maintenance with surprising patience. At Viper quietly supervising to make sure everyone stayed safe. At Nana Claire organizing snacks with military precision and grandmotherly affection. At family in all its complicated, imperfect glory. I learned from the best, Tyler said, squeezing Rachel's hand. That evening, they found themselves back at Old Joe's Diner, rebuilt after the shooting, restored to its former greasy glory, but still the same sanctuary it had always been. The same cracked vinyl booths, the same jukebox playing 70s hits, the same smell of fryer grease and coffee and safety. Tyler and Rachel sat in the corner booth, the same one where everything had changed, where bullets had shattered windows, and lives had been saved, and futures had been forged. A new kid sat alone 2 booths over, maybe 14 or 15 years old, wearing clothes that had definitely seen better days, had been worn and washed and worn again, until the fabric was thin and faded. Eyes down, shoulders hunched, the universal body language of someone trying to be invisible. Tyler recognized himself in that posture, in that desperate attempt to occupy space without claiming it. He stood up, walked over. Hey, mind if we sit? Nobody should have to eat alone. The kid looked up, surprise and suspicion warring on his young face. Then he saw Tyler's vest, the embroidered words, friend of the club, saw Rachel's smile, saw kindness instead of cruelty. Yeah, the kid said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Yeah, okay. That'd be nice. As Tyler and Rachel slid into the booth across from him, as they started making conversation and breaking down walls and building connections, Tyler thought about how far he'd traveled. From invisible to unforgettable, from alone to surrounded by family, from victim to protector to leader. The scars on his back would never fade completely. Some nightmares still woke him in the darkness, though Rachel's voice on the phone always talked him back to calm and safety. The memories of that October day when bullets flew and glass shattered would stay with him forever, would shape who he was and who he'd become. But so would the lessons learned in blood and sacrifice. Honor isn't about patches or bikes or leather vests. It's about what you do when nobody's watching, when everything's on the line, when someone needs help and you're the only one who can provide it. Family isn't just blood relation. It's the people who choose to stand beside you, who protect you and challenge you and believe in you even when you can't believe in yourself. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite the terror, moving forward even when every instinct screams to hide. And justice isn't always what the system provides. Sometimes it's what good people make happen through loyalty and determination and refusing to accept that the world can't be better. Tyler Brennan had learned those lessons by throwing himself on bullets to save a stranger who became family, by becoming visible when invisibility had been his only protection, by choosing to build instead of destroy, to protect instead of hurt, to lead instead of follow. Outside Old Joe's Diner, the sun set over Riverside in shades of amber and crimson, painting the world in warm light that promised tomorrow would come. Inside, 3 teenagers shared fries and stories, building connections that might save a life or change a future or simply make someone feel less alone. And Tyler Brennan, wearing his vest with pride, his scars hidden beneath leather and cotton, but his courage visible in every word and action, knew exactly who he was. Not invisible, not forgotten, not alone, unforgettable, protected, family. And that made all the difference in the world.